Hey, it's me, Billy D of your giant M&J shoe stores, where you can find the best prices on men's and women's shoes and boots in Southern California.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Soldiers of Cinema podcast. I'm Clark Coffey, and always with me is Mr. Cullen McFater. And for the first time ever, and I'm super excited about this, we have a third person on the podcast. We actually have a guest. I am super excited for this. Billy DaMota is a casting director, writer, director, producer. He was born and raised in San Francisco, California, where he began his career in the arts as a rock and roll guitar player. Don't we always, all of us have aspirations or dreams of that at some point, I feel like. He moved to LA in the mid 70s, only to find that disco would put a damper on his live music aspirations. After bouncing from one dead-end retail job to another, in '85 he began his career in casting, starting as an assistant on such films as Predator, The Running Man, and The Three Amigos, which I feel like almost like is a perfect encapsulation of my childhood cinema experience, by the way.
Should we all do the Three Amigos salute right now? Well, you can.
If we could remember it. Oh my God, that brings back memories. There you go. In '88, he got a call from Dennis Hopper. I mean, I wish I got a call from Dennis Hopper
That happens to me all the time.
It happens to you. It happened to you all the time. To come on board as a casting associate on the gang epic Colors, which of course was directed by Hopper and starred Sean Penn and Robert Duvall. Then Billy went on to become an independent casting director with the film Miracle Mile, which I was just watching, starring Anthony Edwards and Mare Winningham. Then he went on, this is a big shift, to work on Steven Seagal's first film, Above the Law, with, of course, the wonderful Sharon Stone. And then he went on to cast a legendary cult classic and maybe one of the best named films of all time, Chopper Chicks in Zombie Town. And actually, and I had no idea of this, that was one of Billy Bob Thornton's. Maybe that was his first starring role, actually. Mm-hmm. Then Billy's cast hundreds of films, TV shows, commercials, plays, music videos. He's gotten to cast a lot of directors at the start of their careers, like James Franco, Cameron Diaz, Brad Pitt. Cast legends such as Faye Dunaway, Mickey Rooney, Glenn Ford, Martin Landau. I mean, the list just goes on and on. But in addition to casting, he's always also been a writer, director, and producer. He produced the award-winning indie crime drama Reflections in the Dark with Billy Zane and Mimi Rogers. Won several awards for his short film Posey in 2012, which he wrote and directed. That starred Ray Weiss and Oscar nominee Sally Kirkland. And to top it all off, Billy has been nominated 4 times for an Artios for Best Casting. Billy, thank you so much for being here. It is an honor. It is good to see your face and talk to you. I can't wait to dive into some of the stories you must have and that experience.
Well, I appreciate the invitation, and I'm always happy to chat about my career.
I've got to recover from that bio. It was so, I've got to catch my breath. And that's just like a tip of the iceberg. I mean, you've been in you now. You're retired, as I understand it, right? Although, are you still working?
I'm kind of semi-retired.
Semi-retired, yeah.
When you tell people you're retired, the phone doesn't stop ringing. So
yeah,
I'm a little history on that. I lived in Los Angeles since I actually moved there in 1975, 74, 75 to play rock and roll. It was, I had moved away from my family in San Francisco and my friends and my whole sort of support group, and started a new life in Los Angeles. And my family had moved back to Oregon, where my mom grew up. So we were now even further apart. So I would, go up to visit in Oregon and spend the summers and Christmas and that kind of stuff. But when I decided to retire 4 years ago, or again, semi-retire, I couldn't afford to live in Los Angeles. So I wound up, moving back to where my mom grew up. And I live literally 5 minutes from the house she grew up in when she was a little girl in the 50s. And my brothers and sisters all still live here, so it's a great place for me to kind of get away to. So that's where I'm at right now.
Well, that I had never actually been to Oregon until I married my wife, and her family is actually in Sisters, if you're familiar with that, where that is outside
I'm not.
Bend.
No. Oh,
And you're, I think, yeah, so not too far away from you,
it's
but
not far.
it's
It's
just
a
a
couple hundred miles. I
yeah,
live in the about as south as you can get. There's Medford and Grants
yeah.
Pass, Josephine County, and Ashland, the Shakespeare Festival, all down
Yep,
around there.
yep. I've got family in Ashland too. It's just a really beautiful, wonderful place. Well, I kind of, if you want to take us back maybe to 75 when you first moved to LA, I'm always curious about people's stories about how they get into the business. And it sounds like you had aspirations to be a musician. You show up in LA. Tell us a little bit about that and how you found yourself in casting.
Sure. Well, I moved here in 1974 with my then fiance. She was I was playing rock and roll, and she was aspiring to be a recording engineer. So she went to school in San Francisco, and then she worked at a few small studios down here when we moved here. And I got a job working with a studio band. I mean, excuse me. I started working in a studio as a studio musician and playing with a local band. And uh, uh, it was great for about a year and a half, and then kind of the live music career, the live music scene in Los Angeles, uh, kind of dried up for musicians on my level. There was
Yeah,
lots of clubs, small clubs, that were playing, that bands could, make a living playing at. And unfortunately, when disco happened, they decided it was cheaper just to hire DJs. So I wound up selling shoes and doing all the other things that people that are artists do when they're trying to pay the rent.
right.
And I wound up actually at Beverly Hills Porsche Audi. And in 1984, I was selling cars. I was the sales manager there,
Oh, wow.
and was making way too much money. I think I was probably making in 1984 probably $100,000 a year, which was
Geez, so
like
that's
which was
probably like $300,000
yeah,
today, or yeah.
it was pretty big back.
Wow.
Yeah. But
Yeah,
that was it was a high traffic store with movie stars and rock stars buying
I bet.
Porsches. I used to sell all of Hugh Hefner's girls would come in and they'd say, "Hey, can I get that one? And can you paint it pink for me?" And I'd wind up selling $100,000 cars to Playboy bunnies who would
Wow.
drive around Los Angeles. And
And you left that career?
yeah, I did leave that career. Then here's the thing. Here's the thing, and you guys know too, as artists, actors, people involved in the arts, that's always your heart. That's always your desire. That's always the
Yeah,
thing that drives you. It's your passion. And for
yeah.
my whole life, music has been my life. My mom, when I was 5 years old, taught me how to play ukulele, and it was
It stuck.
it never left me.
Yeah.
So I was working at the dealership and hating my life. I was, hanging out at the Playboy Mansion and having movie stars buy cars for me and making a lot of money and driving around a 911 and wearing fancy three-piece suits and was miserable because I wasn't playing my music. I wasn't
Right.
doing it was a 7-day a week job, and
And you weren't on your path. You were
they,
off the path. Yeah.
I had strayed.
Yeah.
Um, and so a friend of mine was living with a casting director, and he was my best buddy. We used to hang out and go out to clubs and just just to hang out together. And I said, "What is that? What does she do? What does a casting director do?" Uh, he said, "Well, they find the actors for the movies and they audition them and it was kind of a foreign thing to me, but I was 30 years old and I wanted to change in my life, and I said, I think I could do that. I want to try that. I like people. I like movies." And he said, "Well, we'll get together for lunch with her and we'll chat about it." And we did. We all had lunch. And and I said, "Can I try it?" And she says, "Yeah, come work with me for free." And so
For free.
for free, right? So I did. I left my big old job.
Wow.
My wife at the time was this. I have a different wife at this time, and she is studying to be a deaf teacher, a teacher for deaf children,
Yeah.
and she's going to Cal State Northridge, and they have the best program there. And instead of going to, she went to night school, and she worked days to help support our family and my new, uh, I guess, diversion from
Now that
the
was that
nine
a
to five.
challenge? 'Cause, to leave, that had to have been a bit scary to leave
It
this
was scary. Well,
secure.
because yeah, that was kind of a, it would have been a career path for me had I stayed on it. It would have been, I would have been very successful. Excuse me, I have to
Yeah.
cough. I would have been very successful, and I'm sure I would have. Because I mean, I'm, not to brag, but I always aspire to be the best I can be, whatever I do. So, um, uh, uh, but that's the reason I had to leave, because I knew that if I was in it any longer, I would get immersed in it and not be able to get out. So,
Yeah.
so she supported me. She was, I'm thankful I had, and she's still one of my best friends today. Uh, she knew what my dreams and passions were, and she knew I wanted to get back in the arts, and this was a way for me to sort of uh, get out of the drudgery of 9 to 5 retail 7 days a week,
Yeah.
and
Now I'm
and get
curious.
back to my dream.
I'm curious, Billy. At this point in the story, your passion was music. Did you have a passion for film or cinema at this point when you first like dipped your toes into casting? Was that a big part of your childhood, or not so much? Or
Well, I mean, I grew up just like I think everybody. I'm not a youngster, and when I grew up, there it was cost 50 cents to go to the movies, and when we would go every weekend.
yeah,
My brother and I would go to the in San Francisco. We would go to the Castro Theater, and the Castro Theater had, I mean, my first movie, the very first movie that I ever saw in a movie theater when I was 9 years old was The Pit and the Pendulum.
ah,
Roger Corman,
hmm,
um, uh, directing, Vincent Price, and Edgar Allan Poe, and one of my favorite scary movies of all time, and it freaked me
yeah,
out. I mean, it literally freaked me out. There was a I have to tell you just a quick aside. There was a huge chandelier in the Castro Theater, like an old, the theater is probably built in the early 20s,
yeah,
early part of the 1900s, and the uh and when the if you're familiar with the movie, when the pendulum actually starts to swing across and is gonna is and the victim is strapped down and is getting closer and closer
mm,
to dissecting
yeah.
the human. There is I'm looking up, and I'm absolutely positive the chandelier is going to fall on me. And I mean, I was
I
9 years
love it.
old. I think I
Yeah,
think
yeah, I
I
love it.
I I think I actually walked out of the theater crying. My baby, I think our
Oh,
babysitter took us. My me and my little brother Oscar.
oh wow.
Anyway, that my movie, sort of. I love to go see the movies every week, and of course,
Okay.
my dad used to take us to see all the Three Stooges movies, and
Oh
we were.
yeah.
But I was a huge, I mean, those were the days when you went to the movies every week.
Yeah.
You bought a ticket and you sat in front of a big screen. So,
Right.
and when I got into the business, the movie industry was huge,
Yeah.
and you know, I started when uh, the woman that I was working for. I'm not going to mention her name because we don't get along anymore, and I hate her guts.
Oh no.
um,
Well, we don't
no,
have to mention her name. That's okay. Yeah.
no, she actually hates my guts.
Oh.
Uh, uh, she uh, um, uh, she was working on. She worked for John Hughes, and so
Oh wow.
she had just finished doing 16 Candles in the Breakfast Club and um, Weird Science when I started. I started with
Classics.
her when I started with. She was working on, and basically, I started as an intern, and I was shuffling paper
Yeah.
and being being basically a gopher. And I'm sure that for all your audience, you understand what a gopher is. The guy you send to go for coffee.
Most of
And
us have been there ourselves
yes,
at one point or another.
and this is before Starbucks. And so basically, I was the office slave, which I didn't mind. I couldn't have been more excited to be making no money and doing lots of work.
Yeah.
It was
But for
exciting.
real though, right? I mean,
I know,
because
I mean, for
you've,
absolutely for
yeah,
real. I mean,
yeah,
it
because
was a brand new adventure for me.
and
Uh,
exciting, I would imagine. I mean,
yeah,
even if you're pushing paper, I've been there, and a slight parallel to your story, not to make this about me, but I left a successful career in marketing and advertising. I wasn't on my path. And it was I felt like it was sucking the soul from my body. And then I left that to go be the lowest man on the totem pole, so to speak. And I know what that's like, but you're just happy as can be, though,
yeah,
at
absolutely.
least for a while.
And
so, so
so
you're
anyway,
pushing paper, yeah.
and but I'm loving every single minute of it. And
Yeah.
she was working with, I mean, at the time she was, there were like Judd Nelson and Virginia Madsen and Craig Sheffer and Ali Sheedy and all these people were walking through the office, and they were at the time they were nobody. They were just kids, wanting to be in movies,
Yeah.
and so I was sort of there at the very beginning, and and I think what really inspired me too was that she worked with a lot of, working with John Hughes, you worked with a lot of young talent,
Yeah.
and there is an energy that's palpable when you're in the middle of that.
Mm.
And I don't know if you're into astrology, and I'm not really that much. I don't know that much about it. But my excuse me, I'm, I hope you can edit this stuff. I'm having having
It's
coughing
okay.
fit
Yeah.
for some reason.
It's okay.
I'm allergic to cats, and I don't know if you.
And I just saw one walk across the screen. So did I not? That
That's
seems like a good fit.
the fountain is on my table here, so
I gotcha.
the kitty drinks. So hang on a second.
I'm surprised my cats haven't, made an appearance yet. Eventually they probably will and
This
knock
is
something off my desk.
This is Leroy. Leroy makes a lot of appearances. So
Hey, Leroy.
I had an astrologer friend of mine
Yeah.
who said, "Billy, you're 30 years old. Your Saturn is returning."
Hmm.
And in astrology, that means that you're you're due for a shift in your life,
Ah,
and a seismic shift is one that is like, you work for 30 years. That's the first phase of or you live for 30 years. That's the first phase. And then it's time to make a sharp left turn to go to do something else, and to follow your dreams. And so that's what I accidentally on purpose, fell into. And
yeah.
so I worked, I worked with, excuse me, I worked with Jackie on, oh, I just said her name. So
You
we're
just said
gonna,
her name. Uh-oh.
we're gonna cut that out. So I work with this. No, I'll tell you who it is. It's Jackie Birch. Jackie Birch cast huge, huge movies,
Yeah.
and I worked for. We had a dispute when I left. So
And this is, so you're talking just to kind of let people know, because I'm here, of course. I've got your IMDb up,
right,
like a good podcast host would, and I'm looking at these early films that you've got credited here. It's Commando, Three Amigos, Project X, which, of course, at the time I thought Matthew Broderick was just I idolized that kid. So
oh
Project
yeah,
X was a film I loved. Predator, I mean, how could you not? Running Man. These are like the pillar of my childhood cinema experience.
mm,
And I was actually reading Quentin Tarantino's new book, Cinema Speculation.
mm.
And I'm a fan of his, but he goes out of his way to say that he thinks the 80s is maybe the worst decade of cinema
Oh, I
ever.
just
And I have to just completely disagree.
yeah, me
There
too.
are so many wonderful movies from the 80s, and I just couldn't disagree more. But so this is, so just to give people a little background. So this is what you're talking about, right? These early experiences, you're interning,
Right,
Commando, in these films. I mean, that had to
yeah,
have been extraordinary, because these are these are major studio feature films. You've got Arnold Schwarzenegger in the lead here.
Did you see
That just
my Polaroid with Arnold?
I did. Well, that was, I was looking at it. So on Facebook, you have been posting like a Polaroid a day basically for a
Right.
while now. And yeah, that I saw some of those Polaroids and I just thought that's actually what sparked this. I was like, I got to get a hold of Billy. I'm looking at these Polaroids and I'm seeing all these young faces, all these people who've gone on to have, extraordinary careers. And I just
Yeah.
thought, you've got to have some amazing stories.
Yeah, and
Uh,
it's just been amazing being there at the
yeah.
beginning of their careers, to watch people like Arnold. Commando was really his first, I mean, he did the Red Sonja, or not Red Sonja, but
He did
the
Conan. Was Conan
Conan,
before
right?
that? Yeah, he did
Conan, and then
Conan.
the documentaries before that.
Yeah, Pumping Iron.
Yeah, but this was his first kind of like real acting movie. I mean, that's what he called it.
Yeah.
And he wanted it to be perfect. And Arnold, was and still is a perfectionist, and
Yeah.
he would come in and re-loop every single line that he did to make sure that it was on the money, and that everything was
Wow.
locked in. And he went to acting class, and he did everything. He the way he worked in bodybuilding, he put the same sort of passion and effort into his acting career. And like him or not, he is he set an example for a lot of people.
I
And
bet.
it was great being there at the beginning. I mean, you know, I I was young. I was in my 30s, and he would invite me to hang out with him at Patrick's Roadhouse in Santa Monica. Patrick's Roadhouse is a for those who don't know, is a little restaurant on the Pacific Coast Highway in Santa Monica.
Mhm.
And every Saturday, it was Saturday morning, I think, Arnold and his friends would all get together, all his bodybuilding friends. Sven, if you're familiar with Arnold, Sven, who was his right hand man, and the
Yeah.
guy who was I think, he called him his bodyguard, but he was just his friend, who he worked out with, and Franco Colombo,
Absolutely. Yeah.
who I went on to work with in a couple movies that he produced in Italy. But we would go to Patrick's Roadhouse, and everybody would smoke these big cigars.
Right, which he's
And
famous for. Yeah.
right, and so I wound up going for the first couple of weeks, and I smoked cigarettes, but at the time, but being in a room, where, and the thing is nobody else would come into the restaurant because they knew it was Saturday Arnold cigar day, and and they'd all sit around and shoot the breeze and smoke cigars. And so I had to tell Arnold, I'm not going to be able to hang out with you very much. But the point I'm making is, it was when you could hang out with Arnold Schwarzenegger on the beach at
Yeah.
Patrick's Roadhouse. And
That's
and
amazing.
I think you still can almost, because Arnold is really that accessible. He's so cool.
Y- I mean, that's so you're so let's so go back to this. So you're interning, you're learning the ropes. Tell me kind of what that experience was like, and maybe too even kind of step back, because a lot of the people that are listening, um they're film fans, they're cinephiles, but they don't necessarily know kind of how the sausage is made, or maybe even really understand exactly what casting directors do. And maybe you could kind of go in a little bit on, and obviously it can be different from film to film, but for the most part, kind of, if you wouldn't mind describing what a casting director's job is, how do they contribute to a film, how do they work with producers, director, etc., just to give people maybe a little background.
Sure. Well, yeah, it's kind of, it's funny because we kind of do everything, but I'll give you the general overview of what we're supposed to do.
Right.
And but essentially, in casting, as an assistant, and an intern in the beginning, I was pretty much relegated to doing all the sort of office work,
Mm.
filing stuff, and making phone calls, and setting up appointments. Making sure I travel arrangements for actors. When I first started, I was we were she was just finishing up a movie called, what was it called? I think it was called Fire with Fire, with Virginia Madsen and Craig Sheffer.
Okay.
And it was a movie about two, a boy and a girl who were teens that were both delinquents, and they got together and fell in love, and it was a fiery, terrible romantic relationship. And
Mm.
so I was doing all the paperwork after the movie had wrapped, and I was doing, like, you know, setting up people for looping and for coming in and doing reshoots and stuff, because the movie was done. If people don't know what looping is when you actually come back and you re-record your voice because it wasn't perfect when you
Right.
did it the first time. And I would be setting up travel for them to come into town or out of town or whatever. You know, it was basically just, office work.
Yeah.
DM, almost like I would say the DMV, but I was working with movie stars.
Yeah.
And then I got a little bit more responsibility, and I was able to actually hang out and sit in the sessions and help with putting ideas and putting lists together. And I became an assistant, and then I moved on to be an associate when I started working on bigger movies. And your responsibilities change, but essentially, what casting directors do and what they are the job developers for the movie that you're working on, the project you're working on.
Okay.
So you'll meet with the producer and director, and whoever in the creative team is, sort of in charge of making the movie. Sometimes the writer's involved. Sometimes like, for instance, we were talking about colors. Sean Penn would be in all the meetings because he was like the executive producer and the star.
Right.
He was the one who hired Dennis Hopper. He was the one who came up with the idea for Robert Duvall to be his partner in the movie.
Mm.
So you basically sit with the producer and director. You figure out what your goals are as far as finding talent goes, and then you put out a breakdown. You release a breakdown is basically a job listing for the actors you want to,
Like a short description of the character
right,
and the requirements. Yeah.
and the roles you want to, for the roles you want to cast.
Yeah.
And then the agents and managers who are out there, those are the people that represent the talent. They submit their best ideas for each of the roles that you're looking for, and then it's changed now because of the pandemic, there was the process has changed where it's become a lot less in person, and you can do more virtual casting, self tapes, online casting.
Which
But
has been the trend, I feel like, for quite a while. I mean, even when I was in the game and really actively pursuing acting about 15 to 10 years ago, we already started to see some of that, and I
Right,
imagine
When I was a kid too, there was self tapes were primarily my limited experience in any professional capacity was all self tapes.
yeah,
so
but it wasn't always like that. I mean,
yeah.
in the
Do
casting
you miss
industry,
that?
oh
Do you
yeah, I
feel like
missed.
that's a good or yeah,
No, yeah, it's a bad thing. It's
yeah,
the whole. I mean, it's good in the fact that it's convenient, and it's efficient. But sometimes in that convenience, in that efficiency, you lose the art, and you lose the human connection.
absolutely.
And
And that's what the art is. Let's talk about that for a little bit. As I didn't know this about you, but I think I read that you have actually studied acting, correct? Like
I have studied acting.
you've studied acting.
Yeah.
When did you decide to do that in your career in this timeline? Because I'm kind of curious about how
Uh,
that affected the art of your process.
okay, good. It's a great question. Well, in the late '80s, I'd been casting for a few years. Um, I had I'd finished Above the Law. I'd finished Colors on my own. I did a movie called Miracle Mile, uh, and uh, and I was still trying to understand how actors think and how they process, uh,
Yeah.
so I could be a better casting director. So um, there was. I got to figure out exactly the timeline, but I guess it was around '88 or '89. I kept
Okay.
seeing actors who I really who I thought were amazing. And every time I would turn over their resume, there was a teacher named Howard Fine who was on their resume. Now, I'd met Howard a few years before. He was working as a partner with another acting teacher, or he was a sort of an associate teacher there, and he had just started his own studio in the late 80s. And so I called Howard and I said, uh, I'd love to be able to come by and audit your class and just look at the way you work if I can, because every single resume that I turn over of an actor I'm in love with has your name on it. He says, come on down. You can, Monday nights we have auditing. You sit in the back, you're fly on the wall. So I went down and I went down to the actor Howard Fine Acting Studio. I was on Robertson at the time, and I sat in the back watching the talent. And there were movie stars in the class, and there were novices in the class. There were people that had just started, and there were people that had been working for years, and every single one of them was doing amazing work at the top of their game. It was mind blowing almost. And so after the class, I said, Howard, what do you do? I mean, what is your formula? How do you get such great performances out of these guys? How do you instill them with such brilliant, insight into acting? He said, take my class.
Yeah.
And I said, no, you don't understand. I'm a casting director. I just want to know.
I'm not an actor.
I'm not an actor. I just want to know. He says, take my class, take my basic technique class. It's now called the foundation class, but in the 80s it was called the basic technique, and it was a 12-week class. He says, come in and take the class. He says, I'll give you a scholarship. Take 12 weeks, and by the time you get out of that class, you'll understand what goes on in an actor's head, and you'll understand how they think, and you'll understand how they process, and you'll understand how they do the work, and how they put together a character, and how they, immerse themselves in roles. You'll understand all of that, because that's what basic technique is about.
Mm-hmm.
So I took the class, and I was in the class, and it was revelatory. It was something that I never expected. It was an insight into a profession that I didn't want to pursue, but that I wanted to understand.
Yeah.
And so I have another cat that's up here playing with the microphone. So she's trying to get.
Yeah, like I said, I'm surprised that mine haven't. Usually anytime my cats, I don't know if this is the same for you, Billy, when they hear my voice, they just assume I'm talking to them. And so they just come to me, like, no matter what I'm doing,
The same thing with me. I talk to Siri, and whenever I talk to Siri, the cats think I'm talking to them.
Yeah. So I just want to, but how was your experience like on a personal level? So it was like, it's you're learning about what it's like in the mind of an actor and what their process might be like. But was it intimidating? Was it scary? Did you enjoy it? Just kind of on that level, I'm kind of curious.
Yeah. It's like anything else you do at first. You're on a tightrope. It's like, this is not my area of expertise. I don't know what I'm doing. I have no. And then once you start to get the tools, once you start to understand the process and the technique, it becomes so much more comfortable. It almost and if you're artistically inclined, you tend to lean into it, and you tend to absorb it, and that's what I did. And after I did the 12-week foundation class, I said to Howard, I said, you changed my life. You've opened up my eyes, and I see acting and actors and the profession and the process in a whole different way. And he says, wait, you're not done.
I'm not.
I said, I beg your pardon. He says, no. He says, I'm giving you a scholarship for my master class. And so he enrolled me in his master classes. I think it was on Monday nights, where I would study with, people like John Corbett and Heather Locklear and Lou Ferrigno.
Amazing.
And these are all actors that, that John Corbett was at the beginning of his career, but, Heather Locklear and Lou,
already established.
And other people, they were already established, but they were in class so they could improve their craft. And so I I was in his master class for about 3 years, probably until the early 90s. And then I got, I started working in Europe. I started working with, we're talking about Franco Colombo. He was producing movies now.
Yeah.
And he asked me if I wanted to come to Italy and work on some movies, and I said, yeah. And so I wasn't able to commit to
But
the
so you
classes
really went
anymore.
for it. I mean, because I was going to think, well, I thought you were going to kind of say, well, I was there for 3 months and I got a little taste, and then I went back to casting. I mean, but to be in that class for 3+ years, that's,
Yeah,
it,
but I never got out of casting. I mean, I
yeah,
never
you were
stopped.
casting the entire time.
Right.
Absolutely. And I have either talked to or been in Q&As or whatever it might be. I've lost track of how many casting directors I've kind of spoken to and got at least a little bit of a taste of their background. And it's interesting that yours is kind of almost the opposite of what I hear so much in casting directors, in that so many casting directors, in my experience, when I talk to them, started out actually pursuing acting. They they
That's right.
they were looking for a career as an actor, and then through that process, they shifted into casting. And yours
Right.
is one of the few stories where you were already in casting and you actually went out. Not that you were trying to find a career in acting, but that you studied acting, is almost kind of the reverse of what I hear a lot of the time.
Yeah, and ironically, Howard said to me when I finished the 12-week class, he says, "You need to stop casting and start acting." He says, "You could be." He told me he was basically predicting that I would be a very successful actor if I
And it just,
and I
you just
and I
weren't
probably
interested, or
and I probably could have, and if I pursued it, but I wasn't interested. That wasn't the reason I was in class. That wasn't the reason I was studying acting.
so the
But you're right.
reason
Yeah,
so
but there are a lot of actors. There are a lot of casting directors in this business and I think, and I think my history on
Yep.
the whole workshops and the sort of arrogance of the casting industry over the years,
Yeah.
and the sort of the criminal behavior of a lot of my profession. But I think that what there's a lot of casting directors who, because they were actors in the past and because they kind of got shit on, or stepped on, or were unappreciated by the industry, because actors generally are, sit at the bottom of the totem pole and often get the worst, they get the short shrift all the time.
Yeah.
That when they got a little bit of taste of casting, when they got it to be a casting assistant, they got a little taste of power, and a lot,
Yeah.
and there was a thing that happened with a lot of actors when they got into casting. They said they wanted to try it just so they could understand the process a little bit more, but then they started to enjoy and appreciate the attention they got from other actors, and
Yeah.
the power they got from it. So
And even so, I think sometimes just subconsciously, it doesn't even have to be a malicious thing, not to go too far down this rabbit hole, but
no, you're right.
sometimes it's just that, if you desired a career on a certain path and you're sitting in the room, and for whatever reason, because it's a tremendously difficult industry, and you can be exceptionally talented and not find yourself with a career that's paying the bills.
Correct.
And you could be sitting in that room and just see somebody who's just absolute dynamite, and there's might just be that, we're all human, that little bitty part of you that's like, gosh darn it, that should be me.
Yeah.
And so sometimes that even can exist.
Yeah, but
But
also I think it's a little weaselly at a certain point. No, and weaselly, just in
yeah,
the sense that if you have a passion for a career, you don't just shift because it's easier to do. You know what I mean? It's like,
I do.
I'm gonna be an actor, and I'm gonna struggle, and I'm gonna try to make it. But I feel I get a little bit more power and money and whatever out of casting. So even though it's not maybe their preferred first choice,
Yeah,
I think they take it. I think it's
he's a
it's
little bit of
kind
a
of,
sellout there. It's a
yeah, it's a
little
little
bit
bit of a
of a,
sell, right?
and a little bit of a subjugation of your soul. So
And maybe it's because I'm closer to it and I see more of it than that. I've seen more of it over the
yeah,
years, close up.
that could be. So when you come back, or like as you're taking the class, because I want to talk about too, you know, as you're progressing and your ability, when you're in the room and you're in these sessions and you're seeing actors come in, and I'm sure you're seeing, the whole range of auditions. I kind of just curious more to like, how do casting directors, how do you specifically start to hone in on hone your intuition, where you because it's such an art. And I think a lot of people don't realize, if you're outside, if you've not ever worked on a film or been a part of the process, what an art it is to
Yeah.
cast a film and how much that influences the quality of the film. And it's not just, the top one or two people. I mean, it's every single person
Right.
who's in frame
Right.
during that entire
Well, it's
2
there, and
hours.
because they're all an intrinsic part of the final product. So, it's
Yeah,
not just finding one good actor, but it's finding an ensemble. It's finding actors
dozens
to
or
work
maybe.
together. Right.
And so it just, I'm just so curious about how that developed for you, like what your perception of developing that intuition was, or whatever you want to call it. I don't want to
Right.
label
No,
it
no, it
something.
is intuition. But
Yeah.
here's the thing. I think you have to have it in the beginning. It's just sort of like they say you can't make a bad actor a good actor. You just
Hmm.
like you can't make a bad casting director a good casting director. I think you have to have a certain level of talent and intuition going in, uh, uh, and and hone it and develop it as a skill. The more you do it, when I
Yeah.
first started casting, I used to second guess myself all the time, and I used to, when I would bring actors in, and I'd say, well, he was good, wasn't he? Let me bring him back,
Yeah.
and I would see him a second time, and, and then after a while, I would just you start to get this sort of sixth sense. I mean, from seeing so many actors and watching sort of the gamut of terrible actors to actors that blow you away, that you
Mm.
don't really understand why they do, but after you start seeing that on a regular basis, you start to understand what makes somebody bad and what makes somebody good. For instance, you can see that somebody who's not nailing it when they come into an audition,
Yeah.
there are a few different reasons. Sometimes they're just bad, and some and they will
I've
never
been
be
there.
good, and they'll never be good. And sometimes they're just nervous, or
Yeah.
sometimes they're just unprepared. And you have to understand all the nuances, and that develops after seeing lots of actors. I mean, I made a lot of mistakes in the beginning. I think everybody does when they start out.
Yeah.
Do you find that, or did you find that after doing those acting classes and studying acting, that you sort of like that really helped you hone in on the choices that these actors were making in the auditions, and
Absolutely.
that you better understood this nervousness or this,
Absolutely. Well, I mean, there are times when actors come in, and I mean, and I've seen it because I've been in other casting sessions with other casting directors where they'll see an actor and they'll say, "Thank you very much," and the actor will leave, and I'll be thinking in my head, well, wait, that actor just was, a little nervous, or he had just gotten he just got out of traffic,
2 hours of traffic. Yeah.
and it's 110 degrees outside, and he had to pee, and he didn't get any water before he came to the audition, and he was nervous. So
Yeah.
is he bad, or do you give him another chance? When actors would come in to my office, even to this day, I can recognize when they're not in their body, or when
Hmm.
they're not when they're not present, when they're not in the
Yeah.
room. And sometimes I'll just say to them, "Hey, listen, go outside, have a drink of water, take 10 minutes, chill, meditate, get into character, and come back in." Because sometimes that's all they need, and they come back in and they blow me away. But I think what's happened is because of the abbreviation of the process so much, because of it has a lot to do with self tapes, because you can't connect with an actor personally.
Right.
For instance, if I'm doing a self tape, I can't readjust that actor. If I see something that I think is there, to find out whether or not that actor has the wherewithal to actually, accept a redirect, or understand how to change a character a little bit to make it more what the director's looking for. I can't do that if the actor's not in the room. So, uh, but I would do that when the actor's in the room. For instance, an actor would come in and would be nervous, or would be, tired, or would be, just a little unprepared, and I would send him out to kind of regroup.
Yeah.
Or they
Which is
would come.
rare. That's
Right.
rare,
Well,
especially for some smaller roles. And it's grateful for casting directors like you that are willing to do that, because the reality is it's just not that many in my experience are willing to kind of give a little bit of extra leeway, and kind
yeah,
of
but
empathize a little.
I think the process has suffered, though, because of self tapes, and because of the inability for a casting director to see uh, actors in the room. What's happened is that producers, especially on low budget stuff, have said, "Hey, well, you can do that self tape thing, can't you? Where you can just see actors on tape, and then I can just look at all the tapes. Well, I don't need to spend the money to rent a studio for you, do I? Because
And let's see how many followers they have on Instagram.
yeah, oh,
And
yeah. Oh, don't even
that
get me
comes into
started on
play.
that
I
one.
actually
Yeah.
have a bit of a related question to that because, of course, since the inception of like budget filmmaking,
Right.
it's been for better or for worse, and to perhaps the dismay of a lot of the artists that work in the industry, it's always been a business. It's been something that is designed at the end of the day to make a return on investment. And a lot of people say that there's a lot of corporatization today that exists, which I don't disagree with, but there's always been that level to it.
Mm-hmm.
And so I guess I'm curious to know, how did you find, and how do you still find, that balance between like maybe a studio saying, hey, we really want, this actor in this role, and maybe you disagree, maybe it's like a financial decision that they're sort of pushing on the film versus something
Right.
that you say, you have a different idea. Was that a challenge to balance? Was there ever any moment where you sort of went,
Well, I mean, it's a challenge to balance that if I allow myself to be involved in that situation. What I do, though, in the beginning, is of every project, is I meet with the producer and director and make sure that we're all on the same page about what we're looking at creatively. If they want somebody if they want an actor with who's the biggest actor on TikTok, whether or not they can act or not, I'm not going to cast the movie. So so we'll let somebody else figure that out. If we get into a situation where they say to me, like, for instance, I worked for PureFlix. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that, but it's the biggest Christian production company on the planet.
Right.
And
Yeah.
it used to be. It's kind of fallen from grace. But in the beginning, they would say, we need to find people with as many Facebook followers as we can, or as many Twitter followers, or as many. I'd say, no, you need to find the best actor for the role. If they happen to have a big social media profile, that's a bonus. But if you start hiring people that are only in your movie because they have big numbers on in social media, you're going to have bad movies, and people don't like to watch bad movies. So you can't have an influencer as the star of your movie just because he has 1 million TikTok followers.
Yeah.
And thankfully they would listen to me, and if they didn't listen to me, then I would not work on their movies. So
You're
I
out of
mean,
there. Yeah.
but the great thing about working with new filmmakers is they want talent. And I mean, sometimes it's changing now. Sometimes they'll be sort of they'll go on that. And don't get me wrong, every movie's made to make money,
Sure.
from the beginning of time. I mean, we all make them for art because we want to make the best, we want to make the best thing that we can, and we want it to reflect good on our sort of career in the long run. We want to make sure that we make good art. But we all know that the movies have to make money. But the bottom line is that if it's the difference between an actor who's got a lot of numbers and an actor who's got a lot of talent, I always go for the talent, because that in the end always sells the movie better than the numbers do. There's never been, I mean, how many influencers do you know that have been nominated for an Academy Award? I mean,
I think 0 so
there would
far.
that would be negative.
And I think it really shows in these films. I mean, and I think I even shot you a little message just to use a specific example. So Colors, I'm watching that recently. And of course you have Sean Penn and Robert Duvall, which are huge actors. And, like you said, Sean put that project together. Robert Duvall, these actors are already attached to the project before, right, I'm assuming you even get there. But, and for my money, honestly, Trinidad Silva, who plays Frog in that film, I feel like steals every single scene he's in.
So great.
And do you know what? I had a flashback. I totally forgot. And this is horrible, I'm sure. But when I was a kid, I was watching this film. So this came out in '88. I was 12. I probably watched it on HBO, a year or two after this, right? So here I'm this little white kid in Missouri, And I used to have an impression of Frog that I would do for my friends. I just
2-1, man,
I
2-1.
love, and I'm saying Holmes all the time, you know.
What up, Holmes?
But
Yeah.
he's fantastic in that film.
So great.
And Damon Wayans is funny in that film, and I think
one of
that's
Damon Wayans' first films, because
films.
I got him right out of the Comedy Store.
Yeah.
I mean, I saw him at the Comedy Store doing some crazy stuff, and he came in and he did the same crazy stuff in the audition, you know, and he's like, and he's wearing a diaper.
He's wearing a diaper in the film.
I mean,
but these are the things that, and Don Cheadle, this is an early film for him.
It was
too.
one of his first movies. Yeah.
And I just absolutely love to see that in it. I mean, it's one of my absolute pleasures to see those kind of roles that you don't expect. And I just do you have any fun stories? Like, I'm just curious. Do you remember casting Frog? Do you remember?
Oh yeah. I mean, Frog was a friend of Sean Penn, so he came in to audition. But Sean was in the room for that one, and I always love it when he came by, because he would read with the actors but you have to remember that movie recast real gang members. So
yeah, well, and I was curious about that too. Yeah.
Well, Dennis and I, we would take midnight runs sometimes, and we would get in his 1978 Cadillac Seville.
I mean, this is where I'm blowing my. I mean, I just want to let's slow down for a second. So you're with Dennis Hopper,
yes,
and you're in a Cadillac. What did you say? A 78?
A 78 Cadillac Seville.
78 Cadillac Seville, and you're driving through the streets of Los Angeles
at 2:00 in the morning.
That already blows my mind.
I know.
That's already so amazing.
I mean, I'm just imagining it from the point of view of a gang member. Suddenly, Dennis Hopper shows up.
Well, wait, I'm going to tell you the story. It's Dennis Hopper. It's Dennis fucking Hopper. So Dennis is like, he's the ultimate rebel. So he says to me one day, he says, "Hey, could we, I want to go out and meet the gang members." I said, "Dennis, you can't just, you can't go meet gang members. You can't go." He said, "Why not?" So what I did is I called. We were dealing with Crash, and Crash was the gang intervention unit with the LAPD, and they knew all the heads of all the gangs, the White Fence and the Crips and the Bloods, and all the way from like San Pedro to Simi Valley, and so I called them, and they set me up with the guy who, I guess, is sort of the liaison for the Bloods.
Okay.
And they wanted to meet us at a place. It was near Watts Towers. I can't remember exactly the name of the place. At some park at 2:00 in the morning on a random night. And
not sketchy at all.
Not sketchy at all. So Dennis says, I want to do it, man. Let's go. So, okay. It was a white boy. Now, I grew up in not the best neighborhood, so I'm familiar with the streets, but I'm not, I got a Polaroid camera, and that's what I got.
Yeah.
So we're driving in a 78 Cadillac Seville, and we go to this meeting at 2:00 in the morning. We pull into a parking lot, and all I can remember is the parking lot with all the lights that are lighting the parking lot, and complete quiet. We just park there. We have a prearranged meeting, and there's nobody there.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, you hear boom, 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 boom. What's that? There's cars that are starting to pull in, and they're all red cars. A red Chevelle that's kind of bouncing on its way.
Yeah.
And a red Porsche and a Mercedes and a Cadillac, and there's all these cars they're pulling into the lot. There's literally 20 cars in there, and all these guys start to get out of the car, and right around us, right?
Yeah.
And Dennis gets out of the car, and he's like, whoever was like the sort of the head of this particular entourage came up and greeted Dennis. Hey man, you the easy rider, man.
So that's what I was going to ask. Did they recognize him? Did they know
Of
who
course
he was?
they recognized him. Hey man, hey, the blue velvet, man. What was that shit you put on your face, man? It was like it was, and we were high fiving, and the music
Nice.
was playing, and they had their do rags out, and they were dancing, and the music, and they would pop their trunks, and they had like AKs and hand grenades, and in their,
Yeah.
I did, and
Just wild.
I was armed with my Polaroid, and I was tasked with taking Polaroids of all these guys and getting their numbers.
Wow.
And then they would say, uh, take a picture of my car, man. I want my car to be in the movie. So then I started taking pictures of cars, and so and then we basically go through all the pictures, Dennis and I, and Lauren Lloyd, who was the other casting director on the movie, and we would pick out the people that we were going to bring in, and do auditions, and I'll never forget there was a guy named, what was his name? T. Rogers was his name.
Hmm.
He's in the movie. T. Rogers was he was a blood. He was. I'm trying to remember whether he was red or blue. And actually, I think he might have. I think he might have been a Crip, but we needed somebody to play a blood, and he played a blood in the movie, and it was like
Dr. Feelgood is his credited name, if that rings a bell. So T. Rogers,
right?
Yeah.
And when he got to the set, he looked at all the production designer had painted all the walls and stuff, and he said, "Man, what is that shit on the wall, man?" And the guy was saying, "Well, it's graffiti." "No, man, we don't do it like that." And he went, and so the guy said, "Will you help me out?" They repainted the whole. They graded the wall out, and they repainted it all. And he went and he grabbed his spray paint and he did the whole wall. And he went on to become a consultant for movies.
I'll be darned.
In the future for other stuff. And then he started this thing called Sidewalk U. I'll never forget. Where he would call me, and he would, and he got out of the gangs, and he started a sort of an intervention program where he would, because the gang members could not leave voluntarily. Right. You can't just say, "Hey man, I want to be in the movies,"
Yeah.
So he would help channel them out and find them jobs in the entertainment business. There were kids that would come up to me on the set, literally, 15 or 16-year-old extras that we'd hired for the movie. That would, how much am I making for this movie? You're making $180 a day. And in 1988, $188 for an extra, SAG extra.
Yeah.
And I don't have to sell no drugs or nothing, and I get 188. It's like they couldn't believe that they could actually make a living. Blown. Right. And they said, but they would whisper to me, "How do I do this, man? How can I do this? How can I do this for a living? How can I want to do this? I want to get out," is what they were saying.
Yeah.
Which was pretty amazing. So anyway,
what an experience.
There was another guy named Peter Vasquez who was in that movie. Peter Vasquez was, he played Flaco, I think is the name of his character. And he had the great scene where interaction with Robert Duvall. And he was white fence. He was OG. That guy was like, I think he's probably in his early 40s. He started a company called Suspect Entertainment with another gang member who basically were now representing ex-gang members for music videos and for movies and stuff. And they found their way out, cool. Sort of channeled their way out of the gang life. But anyway, there's a million stories from that movie, but that was one of my favorites.
I love these things. Yeah. I mean, it sounds like it was just such an extraordinary experience. And at least for me, I find these kind of stories just captivating and interesting. Mm-hmm. Just that these like little windows into, I mean, look, if, I absolutely love cinema. It's just, I mean, it's my passion. And so I just find these little stories are kind of windows into a view that you don't ever get to see. So it's just, I'm fascinated. Well,
there's a lot. I mean, in every movie's like that. Every movie has behind the scenes stories that are, that if the public only knew, it's, that's why I love putting up these Polaroids on my Facebook page, because it allows me to to sort of expound a little bit on the history of the
I
actors in the movie.
it hooked me, and I will say I don't know if there'd be any legal issues with this, but I feel like you should do a coffee table book. I think it would
Yeah.
be fantastic.
I'm thinking
I don't
about
know.
it. I have to figure out how to do it. I just probably just have to get permission from the actors.
Yeah, if you've got a few minutes, are you okay on time? Do you have a
Oh,
couple
also,
minutes?
although Courtney Gaines was in Colors too. He played the white kid, the token white gang member,
Oh
redheaded
yeah,
white
yeah, 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 yeah. The ginger. Not to, I hope
ginger,
that is the
right,
yeah.
yeah,
And no, he's great. There, I
yeah,
mean, there's such character and flavor in these roles. That's what I'm saying. I mean,
yeah,
all those things really stand out to me when I watch. I mean, another one that if you've got a couple minutes, that
yeah.
Miracle Mile is,
Oh,
I
what a
think, a
great film! That was
fantastic
such.
film. And this is another film where
That was
there's
my
so
first
many.
movie casting all by myself. It was
So tell us about that. I mean, was that a big jump for you? Were you anxious, excited, all the above? Like, how did
it
that? What
was
was
a
the
big
shift
jump. It
there?
was a big jump. I
Yeah,
had just come off of Colors.
yeah.
Lauren Lloyd was I was her associate on Colors. We were working together on that movie, and she couldn't do Miracle Mile. Steve DeJarnett, the director, had asked her because I guess they were friends, and she said, "Why don't you have Billy do it? He's good." And so Steve and I became friends, and I read the script, and I fell in love with it, and we started casting. And it
I
was
mean, there's
a Hemdale movie. It was when Hemdale. It was a $1 million budget,
yeah,
uh,
tiny.
tiny movie.
Shot at night in LA. I feel like it
Yep.
shows LA. LA is such a fantastic. I mean, if you want to see LA in the 80s, this film shoots LA so beautifully.
Yeah, and
Um,
it's all shot it's all shot in Miracle Mile. It's all right
yeah,
there in that one block area, and that they go downtown a little bit, but it starts in Miracle Mile, and then I don't know if you know this, but from the time that he finds out that there's that there's a
the nuclear.
impending nuclear missile headed toward Los Angeles, it turns into real time. So
Yes,
from there to the end of the movie, it's whatever the real time in the film is. So it's exciting to watch it, and it visually, it just it was Theo Van de Sande who was
it's
the
beautiful.
cinematographer who went on to do tons of stuff, but that was one of his first films too. So again, another movie where a lot of people kind of jumped off to much bigger careers. The production designer I think Jamie Horner was Jamie Horner did the music. I'm trying to remember.
That's a good question. No,
Okay.
well, Tangerine Dream,
Tangerine Dream, right? Did the right.
who, of course, everybody.
And
I mean,
Steve went to Austria to actually sit with Tangerine Dream and help compose
it's
the
an
film.
amazing soundtrack,
Yeah,
and
it's
I
really
think
good.
have you posted about Tangerine Dream? But I'm a huge fan of Tangerine Dream, and
Oh
their
yeah, some fantastic
scores,
scores. Yeah.
their scores in the '80s are just, I mean,
Yeah,
some of my favorite films.
epic. Yeah.
But I mean, this film, I mean, obviously you have Anthony Edwards, Mare Winningham are fantastic, but there's some other people that really stand out to me, like Kelly Jo Minter.
Oh yeah,
When I was a kid, I loved her in Summer School. She
yeah.
just has like the best voice. I think she's just a great
She was
presence in
great.
this film.
Yeah,
I had
good energy.
forgotten that she's in this.
And
Who else? Like Alan
uh,
Rosenberg, who actually went on to be SAG president for a
SAG
while.
president. That's correct. He did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Who? Denise Crosby was in it. Olan Jones.
Brian Thompson is somebody who stands out to me.
Oh,
He's
Brian
just
Thompson. Yeah, it was
so
Terminator. I mean,
he's such a
he's been,
singular face.
yeah,
Yeah.
and we went
Jeanette
on to work on a few other
Goldstein,
movies together. Jeanette Goldstein, great. Who went on to work
who's
with
Cameron.
James Cameron, right?
I mean, she's fantastic. And I missed this. I had to go back, and I actually didn't notice this until I listened to the commentary. There's a new release on Blu-ray for this film, actually, which is a really beautiful restoration. If you get a chance to check it out,
Yeah.
Peter Berg
Oh yeah, Peter Berg
got a SAG card on
I
this film.
Taft-Hartley'd Peter Berg.
Yeah.
Peter Berg, and he wasn't even supposed to get his SAG card, but this is very funny. He played the sax player in the band. Harry Washello was the trombone player in a traveling band that was coming through town, and they met. Anthony Edwards meets Mare Winningham at Johnny's Diner. which is still there, and they still use it. At the time, it was a real diner.
Yeah. Now
It
it's just
wasn't. It wasn't. Now it's just for filming.
for filming.
Um,
Yeah.
uh, and he meets her there, and then she goes to see him in the park, where Pan Pacific Park, before it burned down. Because Steve was amazing in finding these great old, Los Angeles landmarks.
Yeah.
And so there's a scene where he stands up, and where they're playing in the band, and Peter Berg stands up with the saxophone to take a solo, and Harry kind of like, he's trying to impress his girl, and he stands up with his trombone instead, and Peter sits back down. That was his big. And technically, you're supposed to say something before you can get Taft-Hartley, but
right.
we Taft-Hartley him anyway.
Well,
yeah, he got
and
his
then and then the rest is history. Obviously, went on to do a lot, but that's just
and
wonderful.
Also, who's I'm just blanking on his name. Who went on to have a great career? Forrest Gump.
Oh yeah, that's Michael T. Williamson.
Yeah, Michael T. Williamson. Yeah,
and
who used to be before he was Michael T. He was Michael T.
Yes, and it's funny.
That he was actually Michael T. His original credit in the movie was Michael T. Williamson, and then Oh, that's hold on a second.
And in the commentary track, the director, this is interesting, the director actually apologizes for the misspelling in the credits, but it was actually how he presented it.
That's how he spelled it then.
That's how he spelled it back
then. Right. It wasn't, there was no Michael M.Y. It wasn't all one word. It was.
Yeah. I just thought that was an interesting piece of trivia. I mean, just, as we kind of wrap up. Well, wait. So I have to ask, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, Billy, but I just have to ask. Sure. Above the Law. Do you have any ridiculous stories working with Steven Seagal? Now, I don't know if he was ridiculous back then, but he kind of became a little bit ridiculous.
He became ridiculous. No, he was still kind of a dick, but he was a younger, nicer dick. You have to remember that Steven's whole life is based on a lie. I mean, everything that he says or has done in his life, he made up, or he exaggerated, or he extrapolated from, and totally turned it into something else.
I have seen videos of his supposed, I don't want to use but martial arts technique, for example, which apparently a lot of that's fabricated.
Well, I spoke to a few people who said, he was married to a Japanese woman, and he lived in Japan. Her father was the head of the dojo. He's probably going to hear this and try to kick my ass. I'll tell you a couple of good stories about Steven though. But
I'd love to hear it.
So he moved here, saying that he became he was the highest degree of thing you can get in Taekwondo or whatever, or not Taekwondo, or in Aikido,
sensei kind of thing,
like 10th degree black belt.
Yeah, but what happened is that because he was married to a Japanese woman whose father ran the dojo, he kind of let it slide. It has been said that the father was sleeping when he took his test. So you can and also people that have watched him do his stuff say that it's theatrical Aikido. It's not real. But the story is that he had a dojo on the corner of Santa Monica Boulevard and La Cienega. And
now, is this back then? Is this
back then? Yes, this was back then.
Yeah.
This was in 1980. Well, what happened is in 1987, 88, there was going to be a writer's strike. It was pending in the early part of the year. And Mike Ovitz decided he wanted to make a movie out of a script that he had heard from. We'll go back. Steven had the dojo. Mike Ovitz, the head of CAA, was one of his students in the class, was taking Aikido.
There's the connection, because I've always wondered, well, we could, not to cut you, but how in the world somebody like Steven Seagal even gets this big of a shot? But
it's like, what happened is he would pitch the story to Mike Ovitz. telling him
Yeah.
about how he was in the CIA, and that when he was in Vietnam, he was involved in the Vang Pao heroin cartel, to help stop and that basically what he did is he took the idea from the Christic Institute. The Christic Institute talks about the real story of how heroin being channeled into the inner cities in the 80s was a huge problem. And he took that and he extrapolated on it.
Yeah.
Basically turned it into his own story.
Right.
Talking about how, and you're going to have to figure out how to edit this so I don't get sued. Uh, but he basically would tell people the story that he was in the CIA. This is what he
Mhm.
told Mike Ovitz. I was in the CIA. I helped stop the heroin trade in South Vietnam. I mean, I don't even know if he's old enough to be that. I mean, he just turned 70.
Right.
So, and so Mike Ovitz said, "Hey, let's make a movie." So I get a
Wow.
call. I get a call from Robert Solo, who was the guy who was one of the producers on Colors, and he said, "I'm working on this movie, and you want to cast it? It's with this new guy." And the first thing he said to me is, "He's kind of a dick, but I guess it's a good story."
Right off the now, and this was so
Oh,
I'm not a Steven Seagal scholar, so you'll have to
right.
forgive me.
No,
But
neither
this
am
is
I.
his first. This is his first film, right?
It's
Is
his
this
first film, right?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah.
Now, and so and this is what I hear. This is just the stories that I hear, that he is
Yeah.
living with Kelly LeBrock,
Ah.
and I think he actually got married to her when he was still married to the Japanese woman.
Oh my.
And the the general knowledge of Steven in the 80s, that he was kind of a freeloader. And
Mm.
he had a Rolls Royce. He bought a Rolls Royce, one of the like a 1965 or 60, one of the
Right.
old ones, because he could drive a Rolls Royce around in Beverly Hills and pretend like he was whatever.
Right.
And I think somebody said he was sleeping in it when he met Kelly LeBrock,
Wow.
and so he convinced Mike Ovitz to make the movie, and they put it into production.
Amazing.
And thankfully, we found a great cast to support him. Henry Silva, who's still one of my favorite actors of all time.
Yeah, yeah.
And Danny Feraldo,
Pam Grier.
Pam Grier.
Yeah,
Grier
John C.
is
Riley.
amazing. John C. Riley.
Oh God,
I
John
mean-
C. Reilly's great. Yeah.
Yeah, there was some
love-
really, really great talent in the movie.
Now I'm curious, because you kind of talked about Colors. Sean Penn was in these sessions, had a lot of influence, I would say, or had a lot of say. Worked closely with you on the cast. In this film, Above the Law, did Steven Seagal, was he, did
Every
he have
single session, he was in
Every-
every single casting
my
session,
goodness.
because he wanted to be
Wow.
there when the girls were reading.
Oh,
I was.
So
I mean,
it was on my
so-
mind. I
so
didn't
you
say it,
really
though.
had to, you really had to earn your money on that one. I mean, you basically have him looking over your shoulder. I'm imagining. I don't.
He was still
that-
like an excited kid, though, and he gave me a lot of deference. He said, "Billy, can I sit in on this one? Can I do?" But
Okay. Okay.
he was
So
the
not-
star. He was the
Yeah.
star of the movie, and he knew he could if he wanted to. But he
But he was actually pretty decent about it.
yeah, he was.
Okay, right on. What were some of your? I know we've kind of talked a lot about your earlier films, and you'd kind of hinted at your work in Pure Flix and the faith-based films, and you were a part of probably like the largest, right, or one of the largest box office faith-based films, the God Is Not Dead, right?
God's Not Dead. Yeah.
And did you? I'm just kind of curious. I'm not as familiar with that genre of film as I am some of these others, but what was that transition like? Was there, as far as casting goes, was there any significant difference to kind of how? I mean, you talked a little bit about how they wanted to kind of steer you toward, people that had social media audience, but
Right. They also wanted to steer me toward people who were big in the Christian community, which makes sense.
Okay, yeah,
So I did that. Again, though, trying to steer them in the direction of the best actor, not just
Yeah.
the person who was the most Christian,
Mhm.
or had the most Christian followers. There were some people that we had to cast that I wasn't crazy about, but I worked on 35 movies for him, so 35 movies
Wow.
and two TV series.
Oh my
and
goodness.
Yeah, and the biggest ones were the kind of the funnest. So the Case for Christ was fun um, with Alicia Sil. Not what's her name? I'm blanking.
It's okay.
I should
We
I
can
should
add
pull.
it in
I,
post.
I I have to pull up. I'm gonna pull up my IMDb here,
Yeah, pull it up. Pull it
right?
up.
So I remember.
I mean, it's. I
Erica
mean, how many?
Christensen and Faye
Yeah,
Dunaway.
no, yeah. Faye Dunaway. Oh, Faye Dunaway was fun to work with.
Oh my
She,
gosh! I'd forget. And you've worked with so many people, and you've worked on so many films. There's obviously no way we can touch on all of this. But I'm just curious. Do you have any stories to share about Faye Dunaway? We actually just in one of our last episodes, we talked at length about the film Barfly, which of
Hmm.
course
yeah,
Faye Dunaway's in, and she's fantastic in.
yeah. She
Um,
was good in she had one scene. Basically, one day we got her for sort of a cameo,
yeah.
and paid her a lot of money.
Mm,
And she was terrific. She was uh, 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 she had some problems standing up because I think she had just had surgery, so I had to do most of it
mm,
sitting down, or we had to have her because there was some questions with her movement and her in the scene where she had to do some move in the scene.
yeah.
Uh, but she was she was terrific, and I mean she was just she's an old movie star, so
Yeah.
you get some of the baggage that comes from that, and you get the excitement that kind of is sort of overwhelms that. But
I would
yeah,
imagine so. Yeah.
but
Somebody, and that's. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Billy. You were.
but that was one of the movies where because I think a lot of people were a lot of mainstream movie stars were sort of steering away from faith-based movies because they didn't want to be labeled as a Christian actor.
Right.
This movie came from Lee Strobel's novel and or not novel, his book. Actually, it was a novel, and it's a you know a pretty it made it a little bit easier for them to get involved. So we got, I mean, Erica Christensen and Mike Vogel and Faye Dunaway and Frankie Faison, who was amazing in the movie. Robert
Yeah.
Forster in one of his last jobs.
Oh, I,
And,
I, that's another actor that I feel like was really extraordinary. And I was, and it's so interesting how people are cast. I was, so again, I was reading the Quentin's book, and he talks about how he came to cast, or even had the idea to cast Forster in
yeah.
Jackie Brown. And
Hmm.
he actually, speaking of Corman, we talked about a Corman flick right, at the very top of the podcast. And I don't know if you've ever seen this film, but Forster is the lead in Corman's Alligator, which is
I've
kind of
not
like
seen the movie, but I'm familiar with it. Yeah.
a Jaws knockoff, right, of
Right.
about that era.
Right.
Just replaced the shark with an alligator.
Corman was
And
good at that.
Hmm.
Corman was the best at that, and but that performance had just always stuck in Quentin's mind. That
Yeah.
even though the film was obviously pretty schlocky, that his performance was outstanding, and
Yeah.
that was actually kind of the hook that stayed in his brain. Fast forward all the way to the mid '90s or late '90s, and he has a bit of a career resurgence with his casting in
Yeah.
Jackie Brown,
Yeah.
and
It was
he
great.
was so wonderful in that.
Yeah,
And
and it's Robert Forster who's been on the scene for 50 years. He was a working actor all the time.
yeah,
Was never he used to hang out at the Silver Spoon in West Hollywood. Along with with all the other sort of movie stars that were not working anymore and
yeah,
or not working as much as they used to. And
boy,
it gave him a real you know really pumped up his career, especially with the Academy Award nomination and everything.
that's got to be
Um,
fun to see that.
and I got a
Are there
chance to
any?
work with him in a movie called Touching Home with Ed Harris. That was one of my
Yeah,
favorite movies to cast with
We
him.
spoke about that. Me and Clark spoke about that. Yeah.
Yeah,
and,
and that was a fun movie.
what about that film was kind of made that one of your favorites? Was there anything specific?
You know what I loved is the two brothers. I'm going to go back to my IMDb because I'm blanking on their names now. But
I mean,
it was the whole process, because you have to remember that these were two guys that wrote a script,
mhm,
and it won the Panavision Best New Screenplay Award, and they got $100,000 prize money, and they wound up making an amazing because they were both baseball guys,
right.
making an amazing baseball kind of a promo. Let me go down here. I'm going to look at it for a second. I'm just trying to find the. I'm going down my IMDb. I have wow,
You've got so many films,
that's a lot of
Billy.
stuff here, man. Okay,
It's
hold on.
it's understandable that you might forget a few details along
Yeah.
the way.
So almost there. Almost there.
s-
Touching Home. Here it is. Touching Home. The Miller brothers. Yes, Logan
Miller
and
Brothers,
who
yeah.
who were twins, and they the Miller brothers in order to fund their movies they did modeling for like Calvin Klein. There was a I think there's a very famous picture that one of them put up of his poster on Sunset Boulevard in his underwear.
I'll be darned.
Calvin Klein. So they they had aspirations to be baseball players growing up, and their alcoholic father kind of ruined that for them, but they never lost their love for their father. So when he passed away, they did the story of their their aspirations to be Major League Baseball, and Ed Harris is their dysfunctional father who
He's so good.
He's so, and in the movie he's just amazing. But that was one of my favorite movies, just because like I loved hanging out with them, and their energy and their passion, to make movies. I don't know if they've really done anything since then. I think they went on to do a couple.
They did White Boy Rick, which I heard a lot about in 2018.
Oh, I didn't.
Or at least Logan. One of them did. No, I think they both were involved in that.
I'll have to check that. Yeah.
But if you can rent it, because it's a terrific movie, and it's shot beautifully. It looks great. It's a fun story. Brad Dourif is great in the movie.
Oh, I love him.
Brad Dourif's one of my favorite actors. I love Brad Dourif.
And Lee Merriweather, the Batgirl, Batwoman. She was terrific in it too. So
yeah, one of the things that's just, at least for me, most entertaining are to hear about some of these stories of how you found some of these actors that ended up being, your experiences with some, or maybe some of your early experiences with some of these actors who were at the very beginning of their career. Yeah. And I'm kind of, curious what was kind of there. What, if you could kind of maybe define the spark that was there, maybe that you saw for some of these people, because you see dozens or hundreds of people, and I know it might be hard to kind of articulate, but maybe we can try. Just what's that spark that you feel like when somebody walks in the room and you're I think this person's going to be a star.
It's I don't know if I can't say any bad words, but it's just there's a sort of charisma that an actor has, and it's sort of like, it's hard to explain, but you walk into a restaurant, you see a beautiful woman or a beautiful man across the restaurant, and there's something that lights up the room. You go to a party, there's some kind of charisma, and there's a confidence. I think if you meet somebody who is confident about what they do, even if they're not the best yet, there's something very special about their energy. And I think as a casting director, what happens is you become more aware of that. You just become more of a receptor, right? In tune to it. So people like Cameron Diaz, Cameron Diaz was a model. Mm-hmm. She'd never really done any acting at all. And Alex Proyas, who was the director, I just finished working with Alex on a bunch of commercials, and he was just starting this new Australian Coca-Cola campaign, and he was looking for a girl for the campaign, and
right.
And so Alex Proyas, by the way, I went on to work with him on the iRobot and The Crow. He's an amazing director. He's the one who directed The Crow, and Cameron came in. There were probably 200 women that came in. And the scene is a woman running along the beach in Australia toward a lighthouse that is projecting a big Coca-Cola banner
for a Coke commercial, right?
Coke commercial, right? And so we were looking at all these girls in their bikinis, right? And the girls
and Steven Seagal pops in and says, "Hey, can I join it?"
No, but but there were other people that did want to drop in.
I bet.
Whenever we did bikini sessions, there was always
Yeah,
people outside the
you
room saying,
got to.
"Hey, can I borrow a pencil?"
Right.
No, yeah, but but these were pretty routine. What happens is a girl would come in, she'd do a couple lines, she'd drop her caftan and do a little spin in her bikini, and she'd be gone.
Yeah.
Well, Cameron Diaz came in and she had like cargo shorts and a tank top on,
Yeah.
and and she came in. I think the first thing she did was she told a joke, and this is a girl
I
who had
believe it.
just been on 17 magazine and was like a big print model, and she was gorgeous and she was cute. And I think at the time she was like 19 or 20 years old, and so Alex or somebody in the room said, or maybe it was me, do you wear a bikini? And she looked, she goes, "You don't need to see me in a bikini. Trust me." And and she, just like you, she had the room cracking up,
Yeah.
and she told another joke, and she said the line, and she says, "Okay, goodbye," and she walked out, and then we all looked at each other and said, "Okay, that's the one.
Yeah.
She's the one we're gonna cast." And
It's amazing. God, I look back at, my early auditions, and I'm like, God, I wish that I would have, and you can't manufacture that is the thing. Like you can
exactly.
even
I
know,
mean, you
you
can't.
can't manufacture it. And it's like, oh, okay, I know that, they're looking for X, Y, Z, and, desperation is going to be the death of an audition. I mean, you can know all these things conceptually, but you've just got to own it in your body. You
Right.
can't fake it. You can't manufacture it. And, and I'm sure you were honed in on when somebody was like acting confident as opposed to
Yeah,
actually
right. They're
being
being
present.
confident.
Yeah.
Right. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, just when they walk in the room and they don't give a shit, they're just like, here I am, and there's a certain confidence. It's
Yeah,
all you.
it really is wonderful to see, and I, have been in casting sessions myself for different, in different capacities, either interning at a casting office or on my own projects, and you really start to get a feel for it, and it's really amazing when you've sat in a session and you've just seen person after person and you're just like, I'm never going to be able, like, there's just not, and then that one person walks in and you're just like,
Right.
oh my gosh.
Well, I have
They,
to. I'll tell you another funny story. So, I'm working on a movie called Brothers in Arms.
uh-huh.
Probably 1988 or 87, 88.
Okay.
And it's a movie about these sort of Amish type men who live in the mountains, who wear long black coats and ride around in horse and buggies.
Right.
And there's a production manager on the movie who says, "Hey, I have a new roommate, and he just came out from St. Louis, and he's trying to meet casting directors and get into acting more, and I want to know if he could come in and read for one of the roles." So I said, "Sure, have him come in to read for whoever, Jedediah, the young son." And so this kid comes in. He's got a long black coat and a big hat. He dresses up for the audition. It's Brad Pitt, and he probably one of his first auditions in Los Angeles. I think he worked in some commercials and maybe done some small TV stuff. But
Right.
he wanted to do movies, so he came in, and he was really cute. He's probably in early 20s, and he was reading for this thing in his long black coat and and he was terrible. And but I saw something, and I said, "You're not right for this, but I'll bring you in for something else in the future."
Yeah.
And he was like a puppy dog, and he was like, he would call me every once in a while, and he would talk, what should I do? Should I be in classes? Should I get new pictures? Whatever. We were
Yeah.
kind of like buddies like that. You actors that call casting directors and chat with them. But when he left the audition, I pinned his picture on the wall behind me in my office. And when I have, I call it the wall of shame, where you have just, pictures of actors that you like, that you keep up there just to keep in your memory. And I had a bunch of actors. I had Helen Hunt's picture up there. I had, I'll tell you the Helen Hunt story too in a minute. That's a good one. So time goes on. Brad doesn't get that movie.
Yeah.
And I get a call from what was the name of it was a movie called, oh dear, I'm gonna have to look at my IMDb again. Hold on one
It's
second.
okay.
It was a really bad movie. Carlo Rambaldi, who
You've
was
just forgotten it. Yeah.
Carlo
It's like,
Rambaldi is the guy who was special effects, Italian special effects guy who created the creature E.T. He actually
Mhm.
created the E.T. His son, I'm gonna find his name right here. Hold on, if I can go down here.
while you're
Anyways,
looking, just a totally random, weird piece of trivia. So, that
yeah,
there were a handful of ways that they did the ET puppet. There was like a puppet, and then there was
right,
there was one version where I guess you needed to be able to see where they had an actual person in the suit, and
Yeah,
this
when it was
person
walking. Yeah.
and this person didn't have the majority of their legs, and I'm not quite
oh,
sure exactly what had happened, if this,
yeah,
why that came to be for this individual.
right,
But I actually ended up working with him
wow,
at a software company out in Redlands, which is
I
whatever
know
that is.
where, yeah,
Yeah, it's like 50, 60 miles east-ish of LA, or maybe it's only 30 or so, but it feels like 60 because it's like a
right,
2-hour drive on the 10. But I actually worked with him, and super nice guy, fantastic. But that was his one little foray into Hollywood. But I was like,
yeah.
I tell people I worked with ET. It's kind of, but
Well, Rambaldi
anyway.
also did Alien, which we did last episode. So there's a little connection
Yeah,
there
there's
too.
a lot of people that are amputees and that are,
Yeah,
or they get a lot of work in those kinds of things.
yeah, yeah.
Movie was called Primal Rage. I was
Okay.
working on a movie for Carlo Rambaldi was the guy who did the special effects creatures, and Vittorio Rambaldi, his son, was directing the film. He wrote and directed it.
Yeah.
And so I'm casting the movie, and there's the producer from Rome, very flamboyant, like Fellini kind of guy with the big glasses. He said, Billy, my name is Salvatore Alabiso. He's like 60s, in his 60s. And big guy. I'm going to produce this movie. You need to find me a movie star for the movies. Okay,
Okay.
so I'm
I'm on it.
I'm on it. So, and it was really a low budget movie, and I wasn't getting paid that much money, but it had some, because Carlo Rambaldi was attached. I was getting tons of really great submissions. I was getting
Mm.
submissions for, from people like, like Meg Ryan and Molly Ringwald and all the young talent of the the young female talent and male talent at the time. They were all being
Yeah.
submitted, but Salvatore Albizo was very particular, and he didn't like anybody. Billy,
Mm.
why you bring this poor actor down in the rain to come read for this movie? He's terrible. This is while the actor's in the room.
Oh my gosh! Of course.
And so I keep looking. One day he's walking by my my desk, and this is where sort of this is the callback to the picture on the wall. He sees Brad's picture on the wall, Brad Pitt's picture. Billy, who is this boy? You don't really. He's not right for this movie. So, Billy, why not you bring this boy in? He look good for the movie. And the movie's about, just so you know, it's about a bunch of college students who are sort of they're like PETA, the animal activist group,
Mm.
who
Right.
are trying to stop the animal experiments that are happening on that university, in that university lab. They're doing
Okay.
experiments on these primates. What happens is one of the primates who's being experimented on with sort of nuclear radioactive material bites one of the students, that's one of the activists, and the student turns into like Monkey Boy, and Monkey Boy goes on a rampage and kills everybody on campus.
Of course. Right.
And
Absolutely.
this is it's a horror movie, and so not a romantic comedy. And so he
Although
says,
I might pay to see that. Yeah.
Billy, you bring this boy in. He comes to read for us. Okay, all right. So I bring Brad in, and now Brad's like over the moon. He's like so excited he gets to come in and read for the lead in the movie.
Yeah, of course.
And he comes in and he reads, and he's okay. But now that you have to remember, there are, everybody's there because these are the producer sessions, and we have and there's a couple of women that are in there that are part of the production crew, and they go gaga over, wow, he's so beautiful. This man is so beautiful. I said, yeah, but he's not really that good of an actor. But everybody wants to fuck him, so it's
Yeah.
this is my language. And so Salvatore, he leaves the room, and Salvatore says, Billy, this is the boy we're going to hire. I said, Salvatore, he's not an actor. He's not that good. He's actually, he didn't really hit all the I don't think he can.
I mean, he had to have been so green at that point, right?
He was green.
Yeah.
But there was something there. The problem is I didn't see it the way that Salvatore saw. Billy, you hired this boy. We're going to hire this boy. He's going to be movie star. And I said, Salvatore, with all due respect, this guy is never going to be a movie star.
Dun dun dun. Yeah.
So we hired him. And he's like so excited. He gets to go to Florida. I get to Taft-Hartley him, and he gets to be in the union. He's going to Florida for 6 weeks to move to work on a movie for $1,500 a week. It's more money than he's ever made. He's so excited. I mean, he's calling me every day. So I get I'm probably going to screw up the order, but there's a guy named David Westberg. David Westberg now he's retired, but he was an agent at Triad. Triad was a big agency in the 80s, and he called me and he said, and we're looking for new talent for our, this is when, like all the Breakfast Club and 16 Candles and, Pretty in Pink and all those movies are coming out, and everybody's looking for great teen, young 20s actors. So he says, if you know anybody, we're starting a young talent division, and we love to see any new actors you have in mind. I said, well, I have this kid. He's a little bit green, but he's awesome. He's a good looking kid, and, he lights up a room whenever he walks into it. And his name is Brad Pitt. Will you meet him? So now you have to remember, Brad Pitt, when I first met him, he had a videotape, right, that he gave me and it was a videotape of, if I remember right, a play he had done in somewhere in Missouri.
In Missouri. So he had a VHS tape.
A VHS
of
tape.
A play of a play that he had done. Now I'm from Missouri, and
right.
He actually went to the University of Missouri Columbia.
Right.
And rumor had it that the dorm he stayed in was the dorm that I lived in my freshman year.
Oh, wow.
So my line was always, hey, do you want to come see Brad Pitt's dorm?
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one for the chicks. I like that.
So that was one of my lines when I was, 18, however old you are when you're a freshman in college. Yeah. That would be my line.
That's hilarious. Well, I believe that this video was taken from that university. If not, it could have been even a high school play. I don't know, but it was like, wow. It was the kind of thing where the mom took the video from like way back, and you see the little itty bitty. You could barely hear it. You barely see it. Right? Bad registration. The whole
what I love about
resolution.
What I love about this is that, and almost every one of these stories of like Cameron Diaz, she shows up and she's not wearing the swimsuit that, she was probably like everybody was instructed to wear. Brad Pitt gives you a VHS tape of, a high school or college amateur theater performance.
That's
shot,
all he had,
And that's all he had. But it's just funny to me that if these people were to listen to the average, person out there doling out advice about like what not to do for your career,
right?
They'd never be discovered.
There are no rules. There are no rules. And the fact is sometimes when you follow the rules is when you sort of, you allow you dampen the real you,
the uniqueness, that you dampen you. And I just, it always, not that we want to go down too far this road, but just, it associated kind of more than tangentially to this actor workshop thing, this whole cottage industry that exists to kind of,
Yeah.
of trying to, teach the secret of success to actors, how to
Yeah.
book now,
Yeah.
and there's such a huge industry of that in LA. And,
Yeah.
you've been an active voice against a lot of that. And I would say 99.9% of the advice is just horseshit.
It is horseshit. Well, what it is it's manufactured to an end, and that end
Yeah.
is to make money based on actors'
Yeah.
fears and insecurity.
Yeah.
Anyway, let me go back to the
let me
story
go
because
back to your story. Yeah.
I want
Sorry.
to I want to finish this up. So he gives
Absolutely.
so I introduce him to David Westberg. So I said, David, here's his number, and and I called Brad, and I said he wants to meet you, and then David calls me and says, oh, by the way, does he have any videotape? I said no. No.
Yeah.
So Brad went and he met with them, and just I guess he wowed them. David called me back and he said, I have some good news and some bad news. I said, well, what's that? He said, well, the good news is that we're going to sign him. And wow, it's exciting. One of the biggest agents. I think they eventually merged with William Morris and became a
Yeah.
big, but they were big at the time, big boutique agency. And I said, what's the bad news? He says, the bad news is we're pulling him from your movie because we got to keep him. We're not sending somebody to Florida for 7 weeks or 6 weeks in the middle of pilot season. The movie was starting in February. And so I said, well, I think that's good. I think it's okay. I'll figure it out. Brad calls me and, he freaks out. He says, no, I'm not going. I mean, I'm not going to sign with the agency. I want to go to Florida and I want to work on the movie and I want to be in the Screen Actors. And I said, Brad, just slow down, sign with the agency. And he did, and the rest is history.
Wow.
But it's the kind of thing where I knew at the time that it was a better career move for him than being in Monkey Boy in my movie,
And isn't it? And it just and the paths that these stories take. It just kind of goes to show how much of someone's success is also a lot of luck.
Yeah,
and it's so many things are out of your control.
It's arbitrary,
It's totally arbitrary,
right?
And you'd never know in the moment. Well, which choice would have been the right one? Do I stick in this movie? Do I sign with this agency? There's no way to know in the moment. I mean, you can make your best educated guess, but there's so many little moments like that.
And it's completely out of your control. Yeah.
It's just so completely out of your control, and
it's like Michael J. Fox with Back to the Future, right? Like had things gone slightly differently on that, then he never would have been in that role.
Yeah, had he not been able to leave family ties. So what was your, Billy, you hinted at a story about, I think it was, did you say Helen Hunt? Who did you say?
Oh, yeah. Helen Hunt. Helen Hunt
was just fantastic. Yeah, she's wonderful.
Helen Hunt, we cast, Jackie was cast. One of the first movies that I worked on as an assistant. And Helen was not a movie star. We'd seen lots of women. We went to New York. We saw Julianne Phillips, who got us tickets to see Bruce Springsteen in New Jersey, which is pretty awesome. But she didn't get cast in the movie. We saw lots of actresses.
Now, and which film was this for?
This was Project X. Project X. It was
Project X,
the movie with the chimps.
It holds a special place in my heart. Actually,
it's a great film. Jonathan Kaplan directed. And the first movie that one of the first movies that I worked on from beginning to end, I worked on Commando, and then we went into Project X. We're all at stage 59 at 20th Century Fox. And so Helen was pitched a couple times for the movie. Now Helen had just finished doing I think she was actually nominated for an Emmy for this movie of the week where she played a high school girl who was playing football, and she got injured, and I think she was nominated for an Emmy for that. but not. And she was on Swiss Family Robinson when she was a little girl, and she'd done a lot of
Yeah,
TV, a lot of
I
commercials
forgot
and stuff.
about that.
But
Yeah.
she was not a movie star, and so her manager at the time was a woman named Connie Tavel. Actually, I think it might have been her agent who went on to manage later. Uh, would kept pitching her, and I was a big fan, huge fan. In fact, I had her photo up on the wall behind me in my casting assistant office. I really was a big fan of hers.
Yeah.
And but Jackie didn't want to see her. Jackie said, "No, she doesn't mean anything, and she's
Hmm.
not a movie star." So
Interesting.
I just kind of let it slide. Um, One day, it was Walter Parks, who was one of the producers of the movie, who went on to they did War Games, and went on to do lots of
Yeah.
other stuff. Um, Walter Parks and Larry Lasker were the producers, and
Sneakers, which is a
Sneakers, right,
little bit of an underrated. Yeah.
right, with Robert Redford. Actually, I think it was Larry Lasker who walked by and he saw her picture on the wall. And this is after we'd already seen lots of. Now I'm an assistant. I'm not in charge of 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 of, of anything besides like getting coffee.
Yeah.
But the picture's on the wall, and he says, "Who's that?" And I said, "That's Helen Hunt." And in fact, what happened is that Connie would call me like I think once a week, saying anything we can do to get her in, because a lot of times they work through the assistants to get the picture on the
Sure.
casting director's desk. And
Of course, I've been there.
so he said, "How come we haven't seen her?" And I didn't say it's because Jackie doesn't want
Right.
to see her. I just said, "Well, just we haven't gotten around her. I don't know. I have no idea." He said, "Let's get her in." And to best of my recollections, almost 40 years now, that Jackie was not happy because somebody had usurped her authority, and but reluctantly we brought her in, and Jonathan was out of town, so we put her on tape. And in fact, I have still have the 3/4-inch videotape
Oh,
from
wow.
from that
Oh, what a little gem
audition.
that is.
Oh, I have so much tape. I could make a lot of people. Uh, I could get a lot of people in trouble with some of the videotape I have.
No. I mean, I
Um,
consider these treasures. I don't, it's
well, they
like,
are treasures. But they're my treasures. There's nothing I could ever publish or would ever
yeah,
publish.
yeah, of course.
So so she came in and she put herself on tape doing the scene where there's a scene where she meets Matthew Broderick in a bar. The lead
Oh, I'm trying to
girl.
remember this. It's been so long.
And she basically tries to convince him, because what's happened is they've taken her Virgil, her student, who basically the primate student, who she's taught sign
Teaching
language to.
sign language,
Sign
yeah.
language, right? This is based on a real story. The Air Force has basically taken the primate for experiments,
Right.
and it's the scene where she pleads with Matthew Broderick to please help her get her student back, to get her friend back, to get Virgil back. And when Jonathan Kaplan came back into town, we all sat and we watched the video, and I was there in the room when they were taping it. Everybody cried. I mean, it was just so amazing, and I think everybody looked at each other. All the producers looked at each other and said, "She's the one.
She's it." And
Yeah,
and that's just amazing. If Lawrence, I think you said it was Lawrence Lasker,
yeah.
hadn't walked by, seen the picture on the wall,
Right.
and it's just amazing. I think for people out there, either if you're an aspiring filmmaker or you're an aspiring actor, it's good to kind of keep these things in mind, that you just you have to be in this for the journey, and you can't hold on to anything too tightly, because there are just so many, like,
Right.
the entire career are just these little moments like that.
Right.
Now, obviously, she stepped up and delivered in that audition when she was
Yeah.
on tape. I mean, so obviously, had she not, stepped up to the plate and hit that
Well, it was a
over,
big.
then
It was a big. It was a big move for her. I mean, it was a big
yeah,
opportunity for her, I believe. um, and as much as as I would, I would love to be able to take credit for it. It's just it's not. It's just the way things happen sometimes. Is
Yeah.
that she happened to be on the wall. She happened to Jackie happened to relent and say, let's bring. I mean, Jackie could have said, no, we're not bringing her in, and it could have changed the course of her life and her history as an
Sure.
actress. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
If you
absolutely.
think about it, she went on to do some amazing stuff. So,
Mhm.
Oh, yeah,
um,
just
My
just a
connection to
little
this
bit.
is that I briefly dated a girl who looked like Helen Hunt. So there you go.
There you go. There's your connection. A
Yeah.
but
movie that we
so have
haven't
I.
talked a movie we haven't talked about that I want to talk about before we run out of time here
Yeah.
is Society.
Oh man.
Because wow. Okay, now if you
Well,
haven't seen it, for anybody out there, if you've not seen this film, I highly recommend going to see it. It is one of the strangest, most
it is
interesting
pretty
films I
creepy.
have ever seen. It is contains the last, I don't know, however long, 10, 15 minutes or so, is maybe some of the most disturbing footage I've ever
Hmm.
seen in a film, frankly. But it is absolutely worth a view. It is, I mean, I don't even know if you could make a movie like this today, to be
I
honest. There was
don't know
something,
if you could because it's based on like a sexual cult
yeah, and
that they sort of oh sorry,
it's
go ahead.
hard to even describe. It's like it's you've got this like teenage boy or what discovers that there's like his family is this like part of this like orgy cult. They like and I don't want to give away it too much because I feel like you should go see it. But suffice to say, it's freaky. I don't know a better way. It's just crazy freaky, but it's awesome.
Yeah, it
And I
is.
feel like it's part of this. The horror films in the 80s, there was just, I don't know how they did it, but they were able to
Well,
get away with so much back then
that
that,
was if you're familiar with Brian Usna, and Brian Usna was he directed that particular one, but he was a producer on most movies. He worked with Charlie Band a lot on the Reanimator series. I
which
cast a
are,
movie
yep,
called The Bride of Reanimator.
yep.
Um, uh, the I mean, the thing that made those movies was the special effects, and there was a guy named Screaming Mad George, and Screaming Mad George, who I actually worked with on. There's a guy named. Some gets into some weird stuff, but I cast a music video for the Ramones,
Oh,
and in fact, that might be the
epic.
picture. That might be the Polaroid I put up tomorrow. But I did one called. It's called Substitute, and it was directed by Tom Ranoni. And Tom
Okay.
Ranoni was the special effects guy who worked with Screaming Mad George, and they created all the creatures for Society, for Bride of Reanimator, for Reanimator,
Mm.
for
Such amazing practical effects, by the way, which I'm
you're
a
right,
big fan of,
practical effects.
which,
They built these creepy little, oh
yeah.
man,
Oh,
and that's what Society is. Is I think Society. I'm
yeah.
looking to see who did the but the Screaming Mad George did the surrealistic makeup, and he was the surrealistic makeup designer and creator. So he's basically the one who who did
Who did all
the
those? Now,
right. And
now,
he worked for Stan Winston. I think he worked on Predator too. So
amazing stuff. Did you now I'm curious, did you have anything to do with any of the casting of any of the that huge group at the end
that's
that
all
like
I did.
that's all you did? So I've okay.
So I
How in the
cast all those
world
people.
do you cast
Oh man, it was
something
not
that's
easy.
going to end
Well,
up looking like what that ended up? I
well,
mean,
you first of all, you had to put in the breakdown nudity required, because
right.
even though you kind of it's not
It's prosthetics
it's
over like
prosthetics over nudity, right? I
yeah,
mean,
and everybody's in these like perverted, twisted, demented, melted
right, they're all
prosthetic suits that are like connected to each other, and
it's
bodies are like melding together and distorting, and
yeah.
you've got like heads coming out of people's butt. It's
Yeah,
insane.
it was creepy. It was even more disturbing, I think, than remember the movie that came out a couple years ago where what's it called? Where they're
Human Centipede.
Centipede. Yeah, this
yeah.
was
Yeah,
sort of
I
this.
knew you were.
This,
Yeah.
this
No,
was sort of
just
this was sort of
just for
Centipede
people.
like.
Just for people, I have to point this out because people who are listening, they can't see this. This is how I could tell what Billy was talking about. He just took his hand and made like a train, like a like a choo-choo, like going across. And I was like, Human Centipede, but it was the only film I could think of that could be
Right.
as disturbing as this is disturbing.
Yeah, and it was pretty disturbing. But the thing is you didn't really understand how disturbing it was until you finally saw the movie because it was all just a pre-production. When you're casting, you haven't created any of the stuff. You haven't really. All you'd have got it on paper. You've got it writing, but basically it's a picture of just a mound of flesh all fucking each other. Excuse my language.
Yeah,
you can blank that
it's
out.
what it is.
Yeah, but it's and it's all suggested in the most disturbing way. And so basically it was just putting out most of them were extras where we had to cast I mean the reason that I came in is because I was working with Brian. I'd done probably like 3 or 4 movies for Brian already. I worked on Bride of Reanimator, I worked on Reanimator, I worked on Silent Night, Deadly Night.
Ooh, yeah.
Another
good one.
With Mickey
There you
Rooney.
go, yeah.
There's a good one. Mickey
Yeah.
Rooney, who would run around the store and run around
my
the stage
gosh.
and make jokes. And Judy Garland, I fucked her.
Oh my gosh.
It's crazy. It's crazy.
It's crazy. Yeah.
I mean, he would
I
talk
can only
about
imagine.
talk about all the movie stars that he slept with.
Oh,
I slept
jeez.
with her.
And it's like Mickey Rooney, you're looking at him and it's just like
He was like 78 years old or something
I
at the time.
know,
But he was
and
so
I'm just-
funny and so there.
That's got to be fantastic.
Yeah.
Oh. Oh my gosh.
Oh,
Yeah,
and-
so you were saying though, so you'd worked on a couple of Brian's earlier films.
And they had I'm trying to remember who the casting director was. Let me see if I can find it. With Donna Anderson. I don't know who that is. It was a movie. I wasn't available because I was in Europe, so I couldn't work on it with him. But when I got back, he called me and he said, I need to cast this scene. Well, isn't the movie already cast? No, I need to cast this scene where, and then he sent me the thing and I said, oh God.
Seriously.
Okay.
All right.
Okay. And so I put out a breakdown and I got, I mean, I don't even know who the people are in the
and I can only imagine what that breakdown must have read like. I mean,
but if you look at the end of the credits where it says Celie Abraham, Chris Ann, Lauren Tufakoska, Mike Coletta, all listed as extras.
Those are the people you cast. Yeah.
Right. Also, the funny thing is Tom Renoni is in the movie. Tom Renoni, he's one of the special effects guy.
Yeah.
That I worked with on who directed the Ramones video, and he's also plays one of the extras in the
oh my gosh.
in that pile of human flesh.
Oh, I mean, and I did some background work for like 2 or 3 months when I first landed in LA, just to kind of get on a professional set and get a sense of what that feels like. And I thought I went through some pretty ridiculous and painful shoots, because for anybody who's not done it, you're basically standing around or sitting around all day, and you're a breathing, eating prop is what you are, and as soon as the newness wears off, that you're on a set and you're kind of watching actual actors do their thing, and after that wears off, it's profoundly boring. But I can only
furniture
imagine.
With an appetite, we used to call it.
Yeah, furniture with an appetite. I mean, and I just can't even imagine being in all those prosthetics and having to do that. Yeah.
Wait, the auditions. I remember the auditions. They were not easy.
That's what I'm curious about. What did you have people do?
You had them come in and get naked. I mean, I'm serious. You had to say, "I need to see your body."
Did you have them writhe? Did they had to like writhe?
No,
like
no. That was all done on the set. I wasn't there when they actually shot it. But,
sure.
Thank God.
I know.
I mean, and don't get me wrong. I like a naked body as much as anybody else does. But in that context,
a
little disturbing.
Woo!
And I didn't want to have the nightmares that I already was having just from reading the script. So I would have them come in and they would get naked and they would just turn for the camera and just to make sure, because we were just using bodies that we would direct with their prosthetics on the set, and they had to be comfortable with being naked because they were going to look like they were naked in the movie.
Gotcha.
You
Yeah.
know, I don't know if you ever saw Bride of Reanimator, but Kathleen
I've not
Kinmont's
seen
Kathleen
Bride.
Kin, you know, Kathleen Kinmont, who is the did you see the photograph I put up with was Kathleen Kinmont
Oh, maybe.
and the guy from I'm blanking right now. Hold on one second, I'm gonna go there.
Yeah, I'm not sure if I saw that one or not.
Craig Stark and Kathleen Kinmont. Craig Stark is an actor who's gone on to work with Quentin Tarantino and tons of people, but they came in.
Yeah.
But Kathleen Kinmont was like a scream queen, and he did a lot of horror movies in the '80s, and she played the bride of Reanimator, and
Ah.
we made a naked suit for her.
Mm.
I'm going to see if I can find the photograph. I'm going to send it to you. But it was made by the same guys, you know, Screaming Mad George and Tom Ranoni.
Yeah.
Basically the suit zipped up, and it looked like she was naked, but it just had
Wow.
but it was all cut up and stitched together because it made it look, you know, because she was a bride of Frankenstein.
Right. Right.
Uh,
What a trip. What a
I'm gonna-
trip. Those movies were just amazing times, man.
yeah,
You've got some great stories. You know, you mentioned Chopper Chicks
yeah,
in your bio.
yeah.
That now I've not seen the entire film, but I have seen pieces of it.
Oh, you should watch it. It's funny. I mean, it's like it's like a comedy, you know.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. What was any fun stories on that? I know that was that Billy Bob's like one of his first or his
As one of
first?
his first movies, yeah.
Yeah,
Billy Bob and I were hanging out in Los Angeles at the time. He was an actor who I befriended, and because we were, you know, both rock and rollers, we used to hang out, and we used to
yeah,
have lunch every week at the Salt Shaker in Glendale, because he lived right next door to right down the street from the Salt Shaker in a in a house in my neighborhood. So we used to go have lunch together and then we wrote he wrote a uh, it was kind of a showcase of scenes
mm-hmm.
that we did at the Tiffany Theater that I produced and directed, and I think probably right around that same time, just before Chopper Chicks, or maybe just after Chopper. So probably like late '80s, early '90s.
Yeah,
A thing called Swine Before Pearls, where he wrote a lot of his original material. In fact, it was just before Sling Blade, and he
right.
had a thing called some people call it a Sling Blade,
The short.
yeah, but this was a scene from that, one scene that
Okay,
he would do basically him, and actually he was playing. I don't know if you know this, but he originally wrote it as a black man who was
oh wow,
on death row, and so he played the scene uh, as a black guy who was about to be, you know, executed, and
wow. I did not know that. I'd never heard
yeah,
that.
and yeah, and you know, of course, then he developed it, and he did the short film, and he did the movie,
Yeah,
which I didn't get a chance to work on because I was in Europe working with Franco Colombo on bad, low budget B movies, Italian B movies, but I was in I was in Sardinia and Rome and Venice, and so it was worth it.
not too bad.
Not too bad.
Decent
So anyway, yeah.
consolation.
So Billy Bob and I were buddies and I brought him in to read for the thing, and I remember his friend, who's still my Facebook friend, uh, brought him to the audition, and Billy was all in character, playing the redneck mechanic from the hills. We shot that movie in Ridgecrest and Randsburg, which is about 75 miles northeast of Los Angeles, and it's in the desert.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
up by
middle of nowhere.
Edwards Air Force Base, and it's right adjacent to the Air Force Base. And I went up there and did casting. I stayed there for a few days and did casting out of a hotel up there. And I met all the people from the area for extra stuff. And I'm telling you, it's like I don't know if there's a dental office anywhere nearby, but if there is, they haven't used it.
Yeah, I
So, I mean, there were, you know, so it was
I can imagine.
it was definitely an interesting casting process.
I
So I was
bet.
casting a lot of the people to play locals and to play zombies and to play, just background in the movie. And there was this one woman who said to me, uh, y'all got a red car? No. Why? He says, well, because Tuesdays is Target Day. What?
What?
Well, yeah. Well, what we do is is my brother about a year ago, he's driving his red pickup truck down on the highway, and the highway that goes through Edwards, and they were doing a test, from the airplane there to shoot down the red targets, and he was driving a red pickup truck, and they shot his truck, and he got killed. So don't drive your red car through there today because it's Red Target Day. And then she said, and also
Wacky.
Careful when you're out there because there's some weird creatures. We got cows with 6 legs and 2 heads. And
oh my
hills have
god!
eyes.
All right, okay, I'll stay out of there. So it was that kind of area. It was like a mining town. It was a perfect place to shoot that thing.
It's actually a documentary, is what you're telling us. That Chopper Chicks in Zombie Town is actually a documentary shot on location.
Almost.
Oh,
that was a fun. And there's a lot of people like Jamie Rose and Catherine Carlin and Licia Naff and Christina Loggia, who was Robert Loggia's daughter, was in the film. Martha Quinn.
Martha Quinn. Yeah.
Playing May Clutter, and I played her. Actually, I did a little part as her brother Charlie Clutter. Got my neck eaten out by zombies.
Oh, I'll have to catch that out. And David Nell, actually, who I kind of peripherally know.
David.
We had we shared the same like mentor for a little while. I mean, he had already had a career. He was like a young teen actor and did some like teen comedy stuff. But and
who was your mentor?
So one of my first mentors I had when I came to LA, his name was Bob Frazier. He was a writer, actor on, and I think eventually worked his way up to producer and kind of maybe co-showrunner on Benson, old TV shows, 70 TV shows. Benson. Yeah. He was a producer on Full House. After that, he had a show, Marblehead Manor.
Yeah, I know the name rings a bell because I don't know if you know who Deanna Ortelli is. She was.
I don't.
She played the maid in Marblehead Manor.
Oh, okay. And which you can't find anymore. I've tried to watch some of these old shows, and of course they're not on streaming, and you can't find them. But yeah, Bob was a really great guy. He was a mentor of mine, nice. And I met David through him. They knew each other.
Yeah, there was. The casting of that one was fun too because I got a chance to cast people like Earl Bone, who was he was in the Terminator.
I always think of him as the Terminator doctor. Yeah,
right.
Time travel's not real. You're crazy.
Right. Louis Arquette, the father of the Arquettes, who was and he was also the son of he was on the Hollywood Squares all the time. Charlie Arquette, I think. He had a stage name. I forget what it is, but Louis Arquette. Yeah, it was. He was the father of Rosanna and Patricia and all the Arquettes. And it's just a lot of cool old character actors that I got a chance.
So how did that movie come to be? Do you like what because I'm always curious about. So another thing I've got a soft spot for. I love these kind of, and I mean this as a compliment. These like genre films, these like kind of grindhouse genre films.
Yeah, me too. I mean,
I love these. I love these things. I'm kind of curious. Are they? How to say this? So like working on this versus like a studio picture. Do you find that these are kind of more fun? That you have a little more?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I'm attracted to movies like this because of the low budget nature. Because here's the thing: is that if I work on a studio movie, no matter what decisions I make, eventually there's somebody higher up that has no idea about talent who's making decisions. There's some bean counter who's saying, well, that guy doesn't mean anything in China or Australia. or
Yeah.
he doesn't, he doesn't mean anything in the streaming market or the DVD. It's like you have to play that game,
Right.
as opposed to playing with like a young group of filmmakers that have a fun idea. Dan Hoskins, who directed and wrote the movie, was awesome, and he had an idea, and he had a couple of friends who came up with some money, and they raised enough money to make the movie. They thought they were going to get a better release, and the movie sat around for a while, and that's when Troma picked it up. They
Oh
didn't they
yeah.
they didn't want it to be a Troma movie, but it wasn't a Troma production. It was a
They
Troma
bought
pick.
it after the
It was a
fact.
negative pickup, yeah.
Yeah.
And so working with those guys was great because it's sort of like with all younger filmmakers and all people that are not attached to a studio or to a big network, that your creative acumen is recognized a little bit more. I mean,
Mm,
you're allowed to do and have ideas that would never fly on a studio level,
yeah.
and also you're more connected. When excuse me, when a film student calls me from USC or from UCLA or from CalArts, who are just graduated and they're making their first movie, uh, I'm a god. I've been, to them, and
Yeah.
and I'm not bragging, but if I've made 50 movies before that, or I've done over 100 now, but at any point in time, if I meet one of these actors or these directors, young directors, they give me a lot of respect, and I love that,
Yeah.
and they recognize the process. They're a lot closer to the art. It's sort of, you kind of grow away from the art as you get more involved in the studio system, and you
Sure.
get more involved in the business. And so,
Yeah,
yeah.
and it's interesting that you say that because one of the challenges that I have found in working on low budget projects, kind of the in a certain sense, the technology of filmmaking has been democratized. In other words, cameras, we shoot digitally, we don't shoot film. You can have professional quality audio recording that's, orders of magnitude cheaper and easier than it ever was before. So
Right.
on the kind of production side, you've got this real like DIY feeling now, which is great in a lot of ways. Of course, it produces a lot of crap, but there's always a lot of crap. That's always
And
been
also,
the way
there's a
it
lot
is.
of innovation that comes from
There's a
that
lot of
too.
innovation too, but one of the things that I've kind of seen a little bit is that this DIY kind of sense goes all the way through to casting, where you've got producers and directors kind of sitting around and saying, you know what, we don't need a casting director. We
Yeah.
can save that money. We don't need a casting director. And I always fight against that because I think some people really underestimate how valuable it is to have an experienced casting director, for the exact reason that they're not hiring it, which is that if you have a good
Most
casting
people
director, you can
underestimate
make
it.
the money. You can make the money go
Everybody
so much
thinks they're a
quicker.
casting director.
Everybody.
Everybody thinks they have the expertise.
I've seen
They
it
don't
over and over.
they don't understand that. I mean, what my partner in Los Angeles, and I tell every director who decides that they want to cast on their own, or they want to do self tapes and they can cut out the middleman, the casting director. Our comment to them is, the first time you cast a movie by yourself is the last time you'll cast a movie by yourself, because they don't realize that for those 4 people that I have brought in for callbacks, that I've seen through pictures and through auditions, 10,000 people. I've gone through
Yeah.
10,000 resumes to pull out the best 200 people, to spend 2 weeks of horror trying to find the best, 3 or 4 or 5 actors to bring from them. So that 1% or half a percent that I bring back to them, they don't realize everything that's gone on before that. So the process and the expertise and the actual creative, acumen that we've developed over decades all comes into play when we bring in those last few actors for them to see. So,
Yeah.
they've got other. We tell directors, you've got other things to do. You've got to scout locations. You've got to find a costume designer. You have to get the music together. You don't need to be, looking through a bunch of videotapes, not understanding what you're seeing, to pick out people that are not that good.
Right. And you've
So,
got the relationships. You've
right.
known so many of these people for so long that you've got for lack of a better term, this Rolodex of
Right.
actors that you've seen many times before for other projects, people that you have a relationship with, and that's so invaluable, you know.
Well, that's the
And
thing. It's true, and also Dee and I both have made it a part of our uh, the way we do business is to see as many new actors as we can, to see as many, to
right,
uncover, to lift every rock and look behind every door to see. And we never say that we discover actors. We say we uncover them because they're there and they exist, but nobody's looking. So
yeah,
if we look, how, yeah, that's why I can't even fathom why a casting director wouldn't want to go see theater every night or watch every TV show or go to every movie or go to see, showcases actors are putting on to see who's out there, to see who's new, to see who's young, to see who's novel and exciting.
yeah,
That one, our biggest rush is when we walk into a casting session and the director's there and he says, "Where'd you find these guys? Where did
mm,
he come from? Where'd you find her?"
yeah,
Because they'd never seen them and they're excited. And a lot of the movies, there are movies we did. It's called Road to the Well, with it's a relatively unknown cast, but there's a guy named Lawrence Fuller,
mm.
Australian actor, who we uncovered, whose career has taken off. He's writing and producing and directing and starring in movies.
I mean, that's got to be fun. What, are there some examples of, actors that you met at a crossroads of at the very beginning of their career, and you were able to recognize their talent and kind of help them along in their journey? I mean, because I would imagine that's got to be one of the most thrilling parts of your job. Any
Yeah,
other?
there are. I mean, there's so many that I can't.
There's so many, yeah. And we've
Man, I
talked
can't
about
even.
some, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, there's. Uh, I mean, most most of them don't go on to become movie stars or name actors. Most of them go on to have a
Yeah,
working career, though. So, I
yeah.
mean, I could tell you about 100, but you wouldn't know who they were. You
Wouldn't
just
know
say,
who
"Oh,
they
that
were.
that guy on TV," or
I might know some. I watch a lot. I mean, obviously, I can't watch everything, but I
yeah,
watch a lot. I might know some.
yeah.
My
Lauren,
repertoire, especially in the '80s, my repertoire is like pretty deep, and
yeah.
wide there. But yeah. So Billy, I got to ask. I mean, now that you're kind of semi-retired, do you think you might go back and use your acting, your acting experience, your acting
Well, I
classes?
will. I will never. No, but I'll probably. I don't think we talked about this at all. But you know who Luc Besson is?
Of course, yeah. The
We just
director.
did 2 movies for Luc Besson.
Oh,
I,
really?
I I worked as a consultant because my partner did all the heavy lifting, and I just,
Okay.
she calls me and says, "What do you think about ideas for this role or that role or this role?" But there
Okay.
are 2 movies called John and June,
Oh,
and
wow.
I forget the other one. Let me just look it up. If you look up Device, Deavise, that's my partner,
And
Luc
you've worked
Besson.
with her for a really long time, right?
About
You two
20,
have,
20 years or so.
yeah.
Luc Besson, amazing director who did,
Heck yeah.
The Fifth Element and
Yep.
Lucy and Nikita and um,
And one of my favorites, the Leon or the
Hmm.
Professional.
oh yeah,
Yeah.
he was great. I think he wrote and produced all of them. I'm just trying to see. The Dog Man is the one that's coming out soon, and also Luke. It's not on the IMDb yet, but it'll come out soon. Called June and John, a romantic comedy that he shot all on iPhone 12.
You got to be kidding me.
The entire
Wow.
Well,
movie.
that's what I was going to mention too. Is that like everyone these days, speaking of the democratization of media and the production, like everyone carries a full production
Right.
studio in their pockets. You
If they
can,
know how to use it, right?
yeah,
Sure.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, that's exciting. So now you've been acting, not just, but you've been acting as a consultant then on these two
Yeah,
films.
yeah, yeah.
And that's
She's the one. Basically, what happened is the production company called me that we've done a couple of commercials for, and they were producing the movie, and they said, we need you to cast the movie, and I said, well, I, I'm busy gardening and playing my guitar. I'm not, but I said, call my partner in Los Angeles, and so she started working with them, and started working with Luke, and now I think she's doing 2 more movies with him
Wow,
through the summer of 2023. So there's a couple of new ones
that's
that are coming out.
exciting.
Yeah, and she's terrific. She's somebody else you should think about interviewing because she's terrific. But she'll probably just tell you a lot of the same stories that I told you.
But hey, maybe it'll be. I'll see if your stories match up.
Yeah,
Billy.
they won't.
We'll cross check.
They
We'll
won't.
cross check. Well, because everybody's got a different perspective on what's happened, so that makes it
Exactly.
fun.
It's
Yeah,
it's like telephone, you know.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I love it. This has been so
Yeah.
fun, man.
I'm looking down my list to see if there's anything else we should talk about. Let me just
Yeah.
look here. But since you got me here, it's only been 2 hours. So
Yeah, it's only been 2 hours. This
I'm
will be
looking
obviously we'll do some editing here, but this will be. But we won't do a ton.
yeah,
We like
and we can do if you want. What you should think about is the next time we get together, we should put together a little podcast about the workshops, and we can talk about that.
Yeah. That'll be that's a whole other ball of wax. Well, you and I were. You mentioned specifically in your bio, and I'd kind of almost forgotten about this because it's been like a decade ago or so. Gary Baum's article in the Hollywood Reporter,
right?
That big expose on. I worked with him pretty extensively on that article too.
Oh, awesome.
He and I talked at length. We had at least a couple phone calls where I think like maybe the first one we talked for about an hour, and then we talked again for at least about a half hour. But he had a ton of questions that I just I gave him as much information as I had, just my experience, because as an actor, yeah,
right,
having been in these, having done some of these before, I kind of knew what was really going on,
right.
And so he had a ton of questions, and I even would. And I don't think I'm quoted in it because at the time I was still actively, so I'm not named in it. But
right. Well, he used a lot of actors that didn't get named.
He used a lot of actors, but I was one of them, and so I remember you being a part. Yeah, I remember you being a part of that too. But just I kind of had a whole other career right before I came. I mean, I came to LA and started pursuing acting as an old fart. I was 30 by the time I was really pursuing it. So I'd had this whole entire other career. So I'd been on, like, I'd lived in the corporate world, moved from job to job. I'd interviewed a ton of times, to progress my career. So when I came to LA and I was like, wait a minute, people are basically paying for a job interview. I couldn't comprehend this. I was like, this is illegal, right? Like this can't be legal, So for me,
but that's the thing is when anybody from outside the business looked at it, like Dee's father, when we were talking to him about it, he said, wait, you mean the people that are in charge of hiring you are also charging you to see you?
Right.
He's an attorney or not attorney. He's a professor in Texas, and he said that's like somebody coming into my class and offering to buy their grades or something,
Exactly. I mean, I couldn't fathom going in for like, let's say an ad job, right? Like I'm going in for a copywriter, and they're like, okay, this interview will be $50.
Right.
No, that's not how it works.
And there's a line out the door of other people that are I mean,
right. So you're like, oh, wait a minute. Am I?
But it's a class, though. We're teaching you how to apply for this job.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot that we could talk about there.
Yeah, we could.
And we could. And so maybe we could do that. We'll have a whole other episode on that. And my guess is I'm out here in Orange County, so I'm kind of removed from that whole thing, and I've been focused on writing and producing for a while.
Yeah.
I'm assuming it's still the same now, isn't it? I mean, I'm sure
it's gone back. I mean, when the people got prosecuted and charged, prosecuted, and convicted, which 25 people did, because of my efforts with the city attorney's office and the state, and the Screen Actors Guild and whatever, it went away completely for about a minute. And then when I left town about 4 years ago, people said, "Oh, the watchdog is not here anymore."
And it's a shame. And I remember too, this is again probably about a decade ago. You were really helpful. Actually, I ran for SAG-AFTRA delegate, and you were helpful for me. You had kind of promoted me a little bit on your social media at the time, which I think was probably quite helpful. And I was elected. And of course, as a delegate in 2 years, you don't really get to affect a lot of change, but it did kind of help me see a lot of the inside mechanizations of that. And nobody gives a rip. I mean,
well, the problem is that the reason that people don't, especially on the union level, is because a lot of the people on the board, a lot of people on the national board, a lot of people that are their members also own workshops, and so,
it's
or they're actors that are taking workshops that are actually benefiting from them or whatever.
And that's a big one, because I would always be like there would be at least, I would say, 50% and maybe more of actors either they didn't get it, like they didn't know what the issue was, they hadn't really thought about it, or they were like, no, this is great, I want access to casting directors. And I'm like, well, you could have access to casting directors but not pay for it if the paying for it were illegal. That's what I'm talking about. Like,
you can't make the good stuff start until the bad stuff goes away.
Correct.
And people didn't really understand that. They just kept saying, well, it's here, I can invest in the illegal enterprise and benefit from it. Well, sure you can. I mean, that's Clark, are you familiar with the whole workshop thing?
Cullen,
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Clark described a bit of it to me before we were talking.
Cullen is he's up in Toronto. He's a filmmaker based in Toronto, and so Cullen's not actually done the acting thing in LA. So he's not as. But yeah, I'm sure we've talked about it. Cullen and I have known each other for a while. We actually met in an online filmmaking class that was based around Werner Herzog and his and we're both big Werner Herzog fans, and that's actually how we started our podcast way long time ago, and then we've kind of morphed it, and but yeah, anyway, so that's kind of our history. So he's not as familiar.
By the way, in Toronto there are workshops.
Yeah, for sure.
I acted a lot as a kid, nothing professional. I did a lot of improv, and then went to a drama program in my high school and did a lot of theater stuff. But I was always more passionate about the behind the camera stuff. So when I started working professionally, I did that.
Right.
Yeah. So I'll take you up on that offer, Billy. We'll have to do it. We'll have to chat again, and we can cover some of that other stuff. Yeah.
So what is Werner Herzog is still making movies? It's funny, I haven't thought about him for a while.
Yeah,
he's still
how old is he?
What's his most recent one? He did one. I know it was at TIFF this year, actually.
Hey Siri, how old is Werner Herzog?
He's got to be about 80.
80 years old.
Yeah. So he's still making them. He's got a couple. It looks like here in development or in.
Yes, I'm looking at
one
it
just
now.
Came out
Portlandia.
At TIFF. I didn't get to see it because it was streaming only for a certain period of time.
Yeah. I think the last film I saw of his, I think I saw, maybe Fireball was the last film of his I saw. But yeah, we're both big fans, and we kind of started kind of discussing his films, and maybe even more than his films, kind of his philosophy on filmmaking. I've always been a big fan of how he's kind of empowered himself to make uncompromising films and to not be beholden to studios. And just kind of the uniqueness of his process was always something that really stood out to me. So, so that's kind of how we found each other. And then now here we are. This will be our 59th episode we're doing with you.
Oh, nice.
Which blows my mind. I can't believe that we've now been doing it this long. Before
are you going to do one with Werner Herzog too, or no?
We'd love to. And I'm so sad. So a couple of we have Cullen and I belong to this there's others of us in this group where we met in this class, and we're kind of like a support group, right? For
met a few times in person as well.
Met a few times. We have a little like chat group, and we're sharing advice and resources on filmmaking and things. And a couple of our members actually went to his house, were invited to his house, and got to hang out with him and everything. And got to chat.
In Los Angeles?
In LA.
He's not in Disney in Vienna?
No, in LA. And I was how long ago was that, Cullen? Probably 4 or 5 years
it's
ago.
Probably 2017, yeah.
Yeah, so probably about 5 years ago, they got to hang out with, and I was so goddamn pissed off that they didn't invite me. I was like, what the hell is wrong with you people? I'm like, an hour away, and you couldn't just ask me if I anyway. So, but yeah, someday. But Billy, you're the first, man. You're like breaking new ground with us, buddy.
If you want us to call his agent and try to set something up, we can help do that too. So
that would be
awesome. Yeah, we've been talking about doing interviews for ages, and it's not been for.
You can have him tell the story. What I love is the fake story of how he did the Trader Joe's review.
Oh
yes, yeah.
He actually comments on that though, and he listens to the whole thing, and it's very funny.
Yeah. I mean, and that's what I love his, and that's where I feel like he's actually a performance artist, and his artwork is him. Like he is a performance piece of art in and of himself, and I love that about him. Now he'll claim up and down forever and ever that he's not like any of that. He claims to hate talking about his films and about the process, except for the fact that, there's like 5 books, that were just of interviews, he does.
And I can hear it in his voice when he's interviewed. He loves to talk about his stuff.
He loves it. And it cracks me up though, that he's always this, let the film speak for
itself.
That's
it's that thing that comes from, we were talking from the very, very beginning when we talked about charisma and confidence. It's like the thing is he can kind of pretend like he doesn't really care about his career, but really behind the scenes, if you look close, you can see
he's a master. He's like a master.
And he loves himself, and that's good. I mean, that's a good thing.
And he's great. Yeah, and he's been a big inspiration for me for sure. And there could be worse inspirations, I feel like,
I remember I was doing a short documentary once, and I was trying to do the narration for it, and it wasn't going well, and I was like, why isn't this right? And I just started doing an impression of Herzog, and suddenly it all came to me, and it was like,
are you speaking with an Austrian accent?
Did you actually do it? I can't remember. Did you?
No, I just stripped off the accent, but I did like his like cadence.
The cadence,
his, and it suddenly it had so much more weight.
It fell into place.
Yeah. A lot of voiceover people do that. They think about, they have models that they use.
That's
a
genius. Good one. Oh, that's genius.
If you ever need anybody for voiceovers, I do that too.
Yeah, I do have a good voice, man.
I do. I used to do radio.
Yeah, when I was super young, my dad, for like a very brief period of time, did some ad sales for a radio station in St. Louis, like somewhere in St. Louis. I don't remember where.
That's what I did. Yeah.
And as a little kid, because my dad was selling ad space on the radio, I did a few little local commercials. As just a kid. So I'd actually forgotten about that practically until you just mentioned that.
Hey, it's me, Billy D of your giant M&J shoe stores, where you can find the best prices on men's and women's shoes and boots in Southern California.
So that's going to be our new bumper right there. We're going to put that. That's going at the front of the show, Billy, right there. I'm cutting that out. That goes on the front of the show.
Except you have the, hey, it's me.
We can do all that. Hey, we can fix it in post. Don't worry, man.
Good. I like it. Well, this has been so much fun. I'm so happy that you invited me to play with you guys today.
Thank you for
thank you so much for your time, Billy. I really appreciate it. It's been a blast. I have enjoyed your stories and your pearls of casting wisdom. It's been an absolute pleasure.
It was honestly, it was quite nice to just sit back and listen for an episode and just hear you.
Well, I know how to talk. I talk a lot. I know. If you need me to come back and do any looping, and I can do that.
Yep,
if you want me to re
sure. We'll get you in for some ADR sessions, no problem. ADR, we'll clean some of this up. There was some coughing early on, so we may have to loop a little bit of that. But no, really, thank you so much, Billy. We really appreciate it. And everybody out there listening, thank you so much. We'll catch you next time.
Okay, thanks everybody. Bye.